I'll go through the nitty-gritty first so we all know what we're doing, and a Happy New Year to all of you. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed and to possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting or training purposes. I have the discretion to stop or suspend the recording of the meeting, should this be necessary, to maintain the proper running of the meeting. This is a meeting of the Council held in public. It is not a public meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Anyone else attending to film or audio recording any part of the meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Please refrain from filming the public gallery or public speakers on items. If the fire alarm sounds, leave by the nearest exit, and officers will advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Procedures for each of them. The planning officer will present their report, and committee members will be asked any points of clarification. The meeting will allow those who have given notice that they wish to address the committee on particular applications to do so. Each person will be invited to come forward to the table at the front of the public seating area and will have 3 minutes to give their views. Once all comments have been given, the meeting will then continue for members of the committee to discuss the applications and reach a decision. No further comments may be made by members of the public. I just want to say I've had a request for people to put banners up, and I don't think it's necessary, and I don't want to allow that because you've all written many, many notes to me, and which we've all read, so we'll take that all into to consideration because we know why we're here tonight. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you. Could you put your hand up to speak, Councillor Blake?
Yeah, but we allow Palestinian flags to be flown in here.
That wasn't under my committee,
no,
thank you.
you're quite right, but just wondering why there's double standards.
No, that was under your committees, yeah. Thank you. I've given the welcome now. Declaration of interest and lobbying. Is anyone declaring any interest on lobbying, please? I think we've all been lobbied. Yes, Councillor Blake.
Need to make a comment on this. First and foremost, some people may be aware that with respect to a photo that I was seen standing in front of over in Billericay regarding Greenbelt, no development on Greenbelt, that is a party policy which I stand by. However, anybody who saw me at that photo will know that the next planning application we actually had here was actually for to build a McDonald's on a green belt. I think it was like a car park, and I was the only one that actually didn't vote against that. So just to clear that thing up. Also, I made a request to speak as a ward member due to the number of local residents who were contacting me to oppose the application. However, on reflection of my position, I realise I still wish to hear both sides of the application and have yet to form an opinion, and therefore it would be more appropriate for me to participate on the committee so that I can have a formed and balanced view on this item.
I think you've been given a reason about that, have you not? Okay, thank you. I'll go straight into to confirm the minutes of the planning meeting held on the 4th of December. Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've been lobbied numerous times on item 4. Yeah, numerous emails sent overnight. Thank you very much for those at 4 in the morning. Lovely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hilliard?
Exactly the same. Been over plenty of emails. Thank you.
Yes, I know. I think we're pretty generally sick about all that. Yes, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Two things from me. Firstly, I'm a Billericay resident, and both item 4 and item 6 are within a mile of my home address. Firstly. Secondly, as my colleagues have also mentioned, I've received about 80 emails from members of the public, as these are out of process from our planning process, which does allow residents the possibility to submit observations on planning applications as part of our process. I haven't read them, and they won't form part of my decision tonight.
Thank you. I've just been reminded, sorry, Councillor Blake, that all those people that have declared an interest tonight have an open mind to this application. So we've got that. Thank you. Councillor Blake.
Yeah, I didn't declare that's well, actually the item was actually the item 4 that we're talking about. I actually didn't mention that, and I did read all the emails and respond to them all.
Well, we'll go on to item 2 now, which is minutes of confirmation of the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 4th of December 2024. All those in favour? And sorry, Councillor Callaghan, you wasn't here.
Oh no, apologies, Chair. There is a slight issue with the minutes from the last meeting in terms of the voting record, but I'm going to allow Councillor Baker to explain that because it's his vote that's actually recorded incorrectly.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as regards the item on the McDonald's, it shows that I abstained against that. In fact, I voted against it. And I think it also shows that Councillor Blake voted against it, and I believe he abstained. So it may be that those two have been mixed up. Yes. So my record should be voted against. Yes. And Councillor Blake should be abstained.
I can't ask Sharon, she's not here this evening, so yes, okay.
Anyway, I definitely voted against.
So we'll correct that on the minutes, okay. That's Councillor Baker and Councillor Blake. Thank you. So we voted on that and those two abstained. Thank you. Have we any apologies for absence tonight? No. Thank you. Pardon? So we'll go straight on to item 4, which is the outline application with all matters reserved, except access onto Langdon Road for the erection of up to 250 homes, new vehicular access off Langdon Road, new pedestrian, cycle access points, together with car parking, landscaping, green infrastructure, surface water drainage basins and associated work at land west of Langdon Road, Billericay. Can I ask Louise Cook, please, to give us the things on it, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I won't go back over the description. Thank you, you've already done that, so we'll move on. But just to say that the applicant is Gleeson Land Limited, who are a land promoter. As you're aware, the application is in outline form itself. So basically, other than for the exception of access, all other matters are reserved for future consideration. So, i.e. appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. However, notwithstanding this, an indicative illustrative master plan and landscape master plan has been submitted with the application to demonstrate how the 250 homes could be accommodated on site, and I'll go through that in more detail shortly. So here you can see the application site, which is outlined in red. It's located to the western side of Langdon Road in Billericay, and it forms approximately 15.7 hectares in size. The blue line is also within the applicant's ownership, however it does not form part of this application before you today. The application site is located within the green belt and comprises of arable agricultural land. The site extends to the eastern side of Frithwood Lane, and in doing so it is sited to the rear of residential properties on the southern side of Scrub Rise, Greenfields Close, Greenfields itself, Foxley Close and Quilters Drive. It is therefore located adjacent to the settlement boundary of Billericay, and it's sited approximately 500 metres south of Billericay High Street at its nearest point, and then extended to approximately 3/4 of a mile at its furthest point, and those are straight line distances. Part of the northeast edge of the site is located adjacent to the southernmost boundary of the southernmost boundary of the Billericay Conservation Area, which stops at the edge of the fold, which is, you can see in the top right-hand corner of that plan, located on the western side of Langdon Road, and this is a the fold itself is a non-designated heritage asset. The conservation area is a designated heritage asset. There are, however, no listed buildings or heritage assets located within the actual application site itself. There is also a gas pipeline running along the northern and western boundaries of the site, and in terms of land levels, the site slopes gently from east to west. The site is located outside of, but adjacent to, Frithwood Ancient Woodland, which is located to the south of the site, and the next slide will show this clearer. Running diagonally through the centre of the site is a public right-of-way, Billericay 23, which leads into public right-of-way Little Bursted 23, forming part of the southern site boundary adjacent to Frithwood, which is set at the end of Frithwood Lane. There are selected trees on site which benefit from tree preservation orders or TPOs, and the site also contains some veteran trees. This slide shows the aerial image of the site, which predominantly consists of arable fields, broken up by established field boundaries. A strong part of the site's character are the strips of vegetation which run broadly through the centre of the site in a north-south direction, and from the northeastern to southwestern corners, which follow the routes of the public right-of-way. The public right-of-way within the site is accessed in the northeastern corner, adjacent to the fold off of Langdon Road and the edge of the conservation area, and this leads down to Frithwood Lane, not far from its junction with 2nd Avenue in Billericay. On this image you can see the siting of existing residential properties and their rear gardens located to the north, east and west of the site. Immediately to the northeast corner is the former Quilter School and Reed site, which has a resolution to grant planning permission for the conversion of the building and a new detached block comprising of 32 flats. Moving on to the site photographs. So these photographs are all taken from the Langdon Road frontage of the site. The top photographs to the left and middle of the screen show views across the application site, which are taken from the field access, which is shown in the top right photograph. You can see the gates there. That's facing a southerly direction along Langdon Road. The access to the public right-of-way, which I touched on before, is adjacent to the fold, and it's shown in the bottom right-hand image. It's quite well screened there. And the large image at the bottom of the screen is a Google Maps image, again facing south, which shows the site on the right-hand side of that image, behind the hedging and the tree screening, existing boundary screening, and the properties which face onto that site. You can see there, just in the background of that picture, which are obviously on Langdon Road. Second lot of photographs, so the top left photograph is facing north along Frithwood Lane. The site is obviously located there on the right-hand side of that image, with houses beyond on the left-hand side. The bottom left and bottom middle photographs are looking through the site and facing broadly in a sort of northeastern direction, and they lead from the public right-of-way entrance as it leads from the site along Frithwood Lane. The middle photograph there, sort of on the right-hand side of that middle photograph at the bottom, shows the row of trees and vegetation, and the ancient woodland would be sort of beyond that in a southerly or right-hand direction, for want of a better word. And the bottom right-hand picture in the corner there shows the rear of properties in Greenfields which back onto the site, and that photograph is faces north in a northerly direction. So the application is accompanied by a number of illustrative plans, which includes this illustrative master plan, as well as a landscape master plan, and also an outline design code, which has been submitted and reviewed and updated following liaison with the council's urban designer. The illustrative master plan has also been through review prior to the application being submitted, alongside the Essex Quality Review Panel, which is part of Essex County Council Place Services. This slide shows the proposed illustrative master plan, with the white squares being the proposed dwellings, with existing and proposed trees and soft landscaping shown in various shades of green there on the page itself. The grey and brown areas are the proposed roads which run around the site, with main access coming off of Langdon Road in the top right-hand corner of the site itself. 2 other points of access are proposed to the top and bottom left-hand corners of the site. However, these are pedestrian and cycle access points only, with the one providing potential for emergency access, and that would be the one in the top left-hand corner of the site itself, access off Frithwood Lane. There will be no other access for people, so the only access in terms of vehicular access is off of Langdon Road, just to confirm that. So the first parcel itself, which is the parcel on the far eastern side of the site there, you can see the cluster of houses, would contain a series of properties set back a minimum distance of approximately 19 metres from the Langdon Road frontage, and would be screened by existing soft landscaping which runs across the road, which was seen in previous photographs. A significant landscape buffer would remain and be enhanced on the southern boundary of this parcel, adjacent to existing properties which are located on the western side of Langdon Road, immediately next to the site. The existing mature veteran trees on site would also be retained and become focal features, with development set away from these trees and outside of these root protection areas. So I don't know, hopefully you can see the cursor. So there's a tree there that refers to, veteran tree, and another there. So in terms of the proposed access road into the site, this would lead through the site and cut through the public right-of-way at one point, leading to and serving to the remainder of the proposed development. To the top northeastern corner of the site and adjacent to the conservation area boundary, an area free from proposed dwellings would remain and would be used as an arrival space that would contain meadow planting, community growing gardens and a seating area. A walking route would run around the perimeter of the proposed development, with further routes available through the centre of the site and connecting with the existing public right-of-way. In terms of heights, the proposal would be up to 2 storeys in height on the outer edges, where the site lies adjacent to the rear gardens of existing housing and natural green space, and up to 2.5 storeys through the centre of the site and on the Langdon Road frontage, and the maximum height being 12 metres. 5 different character zones are envisaged throughout the development. I won't go into too much detail, but that is set out within the report from page 59 onwards. And the proposed density across the site ranges from approximately 30 to 50 dwellings per hectare, with the highest densities being located in the centre of the site, well away from existing neighbouring properties, and also on the Langdon Road frontage. A 15-metre buffer extending to 25 metres will be provided adjacent to the Frithwood ancient woodland area. So this Frithwood you can see here, if that's clear, with a buffer being provided along this area. So development would be well set back from that. So this shows the parameter plan, some of the things I've already touched on. So the black dotted line there in the top right-hand corner will shows the vehicular access into the site of Langdon Road. In yellow is the proposed residential development area of dwellings up to 2.5 storeys in height. This also would contain areas where roads, parking and some open space would be located. In light green is the green infrastructure, so this would include landscape buffers, public open space, areas of natural play and also suds drainage areas. The dark green or grey strip there is a bit sort of unclear, sorry, jump from one to the other, go back. In that sort of area there is a buffer zone that we've spoken about before, and then additional woodland buffer planting would be provided in that area. The dotted blue line at the top left of the site is one of the accesses, so that would be the proposed cycle pedestrian access and the emergency vehicle access off Frithwood Lane. The second access is further south, the pinky purple colour there, in the bottom left-hand corner, and this is proposed to be a cycle and pedestrian access, also off of Frithwood Lane. The dotted green line is the retained public right-of-way, so that remains in place, runs through the centre of the site diagonally, and the grey dashed lines there's two of those on the screen, show the two vehicular connections which would be provided through the open space linking up the various parcels of development. So this slide shows the illustrative landscape master plan. So as I said before, the application is an outline application with landscaping being a reserve matter, so we don't have full details of the landscaping at this stage. However, this plan provides a clear representation of how soft landscaping would be accommodated on the site, so it gives you a broad idea. So in terms of open spaces, the development would incorporate 6 different types of play areas, which are scattered throughout the development. There would be a village green, which is framed by the existing veteran trees and field margins. There would be linear open space along the southern boundary, which would also include woodland infill and buffer planting, ecological interventions, and a paved pedestrian route as an alternative to the existing retained public right-of-way, which obviously becomes wet and muddy underfoot. There'd be a common area located along the western side of the site. This integrates the Suds attenuation basins, one of which is proposed to be permanently wet. There would also be a new woodland edge, and a new woodland edge habitat to be introduced, and that would be along the southern boundary, adjacent to the ancient woodland. As a result of this, the development would be set back at least 55 metres from Frithwood Lane, so the actual built form itself would be set back at 55 metres from Frithwood Lane as a minimum. In terms of trees, so basically most trees will remain on site with the exception of 3 trees, and one hedge at 4.5 metres in long would need to be removed to accommodate the indicative proposed layout and the access road. All of these trees are category C trees, which is basically small or low quality. New trees would be planted on site, including both mixed avenue tree planting, native mixed buffer planting, and linear rain gardens, also with tree planting. However, final numbers would be established at the reserve matter stage. The proposal is a landscape-led proposal, and it would create 7.8 hectares of open space for the benefit of both existing and future residents. The next slide is moving on to the proposed access work. So the first one is for Langdon Road. This slide shows the vehicular access into the site. As I said before, this is the only vehicular access into the site for residents and visitors. The emergency access is proposed on Frithwood Lane, but I'll go on to that separately. That's shown on another slide. So here you can see the new access with associated site displays, with some of the hedgerows shaved back to allow them for the actual visibility there and the necessary displays put in place. It also shows a new shared footway and cycleway leading from the site onto Langdon Road, which will also include the relocation of some of the existing lighting columns. The proposal would deliver local walking and cycling improvements outside of the site along Langdon Road. This would also include the provision of tactile paving at uncontrolled crossing points on the Quilters Drive, School Road, Churchview side roads, and the access road to Quilters Infant and Junior Schools. The enhancements would also include a 2.5 metre wide shared pedestrian stroke cycleway between the proposed new vehicular access on the western side of Langdon Road, leading up past the Quilters Drive junction, and then beyond that, leading all the way up to the signalised crossing point at the London Road, High Street and Sun Street roundabout. The existing pedestrian crossing on London Road, close to the junction with School Road, would be replaced with a parallel, or others may know it as a tiger crossing, and this would allow cyclists to cross, having their own dedicated space without the need to dismount. This crossing provides a direct link to Billericay School and Billericay Sports Centre. The next slide shows the proposed access works to the Thriftwood Lane in the northwestern corner of the site. And just to stress, this access is for pedestrian, cycle and emergency vehicle use only. It incorporates a shared footway and cycleway, the necessary visibility space, a 1 metre grass verge and a pedestrian crossing point to provide connection to the existing pavement on the western side of Thriftwood Lane. The next slide shows the new pedestrian and cycle connection to Thriftwood Lane in the site's southwestern corner. So something similar, but obviously without the emergency vehicle access. And again, a shared footway and cycleway is proposed, and with a new drop curb to access that. The next two slides are CGIs that have been put together by the applicant just to give an artist's impression of what it could look like. And the second one there. And this slide shows an illustrative aerial view CGI plan. It's angled in a sort of north-easterly direction there, looking across the site from Thriftwood Lane towards Langdon Road. So moving on to the key issues in front of you today. So number one is the principle of developing this greenbelt site. So the new NPPF was published very recently on the 12th of December, which I think we're all trying to get our heads around, but that also includes new provision of the grey belt and also the golden rules, which is detailed within the discussion there. Officers have gone through and digested this, and we obviously have concluded that the proposal constitutes grey belt and also meets the golden rules. The definition of this is set out on page 41. With further discussion on pages 51 onwards. Therefore, in accordance with paragraph 158 of the NPPF, as the proposal constitutes grey belt and meets the golden rules, this carries significant weight in favour of the application. However, should members consider the development to be inappropriate, consideration of the very special circumstances will need to take place, and these are set out at section 5.19 of the report, so page 101 onwards. The second key issue is the design, layout and landscape character. I've gone through some of the landscape features separately. Whilst it's recognised that there will be some identified local level harm, the proposed development, subject to appropriate landscape mitigation, would be capable of being accommodated within the site without significant harm to the wider landscape and would integrate satisfactorily within its wider greenbelt context, in officers' opinion. The next main issue also is the impact on neighbouring amenity, and this is assessed at paragraph 5.4 of the report, which concludes that sufficient and often generous separation distances would be achieved between existing neighbouring properties and those proposed. It is not considered that there would be a detrimental impact in terms of daylight and sunlight, loss of privacy or overlooking on existing neighbouring properties. It is of course recognised, however, that inevitably the proposal would reduce the views and rural outlook enjoyed by surrounding existing neighbouring occupiers. In terms of construction impacts, it is recognised that these are, again, inevitable, although not permanent in nature. A construction methods statement and management plan would be required to be agreed by condition if members were minded to grant planning permission, and this would mitigate the construction impacts. The next main issue are highway matters, including car parking, active and sustainable modes of transport. In terms of highway matters, the application is accompanied by a transport assessment, which includes a stage 1 road safety audit and a sustainable transport strategy. It is acknowledged that the site is located within a sustainable location with good access to local facilities, shops and services. Car parking and cycle parking would be provided in accordance with the latest EPOA standards, and conditions are imposed to secure this, conditions 33 and 34. In terms of transport movements to and from the site, it's recognised that these will be increased. However, no objection has been received from the Council's Highway Authority, subject to conditions and the contributions being secured. It is considered that the submitted transport assessment and associated cumulative impact note represents a robust position of the road network in the vicinity of the development. The development would provide local cycling and walking improvements along Langdon Road, which have already been discussed. Bus service enhancements and a contribution to facilitate an enhanced bus route will also be provided, and I'll discuss that in more detail shortly. Therefore, the focus on the development is on more sustainable modes of transport, encouraging a modal shift, moving away from the reliance upon cars. The next issue there is flood risk and drainage. The site sits within flood zone 1, the lowest probability of flooding, and is located within a critical drainage area. The applicant has worked with Essex County Council, who are the lead local flood authority, to ensure that adequate flood risk and drainage measures are installed to restrict and control surface water runoff to greenfield rates, and this will be done utilising a hydro brake flow control system, with excess water being stored in the attenuation basins before release. And further information is set out on the update sheet regarding that. Section 5.8 of the report discusses the matter of flood risk and drainage in more detail, and also there are several conditions within the report that recommended that also relate to drainage. No objection has been received from the lead local flood authority. The next issue is ecology, BNG, or biodiversity net gain, the impact on Frithwood ancient woodland and other local SSSI sites. So the application is accompanied by a series of ecological surveys, appraisals and assessments, which are all set out on page 25. These have all been reviewed by Place Services Ecology and raise no objections subject to conditions. In terms of BNG, there would be a predicted 26.5% increase in habitat units and a 15% increase in hedgerow units across the site as a result of the proposal. All BNG would take place on-site rather than off-site. The proposal therefore exceeds the mandatory 10% biodiversity net gain requirements. Natural England and the Forestry Commission have been consulted on the application, who have raised no objection. Natural England states that the proposal will not have a significant impact on the ancient woodland. The development will not directly impact upon the habitats of mill meadows or Norsey woods, nor would it damage or destroy the interest features of these SSSI sites. The development itself, in terms of built form, would be set a minimum distance of 40 metres from Frithwood. The proposal would also include mitigation measures for priority species, which includes the introduction of public open space, retention of existing trees, new planting including wildflower meadows, the use of native plant species, the provision of bat boxes, sensitive lighting design, wildlife sensitive design, lighting, retention of badger sets, incorporating a buffer zone around them, new planting for the provision of reptiles, and reptile translocation where required. And the proposed design ensures the retention of existing boundary habitats. Condition 36 would secure the installation of bird, bat and swift nesting boxes on the proposed dwellings. In terms of energy and sustainability, this would be a no gas development, and therefore no gas boilers would be installed within any of the properties, and nor would there be any mains gas connection to any of the dwellings, and this would be secured via condition 41. In terms of the historic environment, so that includes the impact on the Billericay Conservation Area and the former Quilters School, the proposal would result in a low level of less than substantial harm to the conservation area and a low level of harm to the non-designated heritage asset, the former Quilters School. However, it is considered that the public benefits of the scheme are considered to significantly outweigh the identified low levels of harm to the conservation area and the former Quilters School, which is in accordance with paragraphs 215 and 216 of the NPPF. In terms of agricultural land, the proposed development will result in the loss of agricultural land, and attention is drawn to the update sheet alongside section 515 of the report, page 93. Finally, the other key issue is infrastructure and section 106 contributions, and I will discuss that on the next slide. So this slide sets out the monetary and non-monetary contributions which have been formally informally agreed by the applicant and would be secured via a Section 106 agreement if permission was granted. It should also be noted that very recently the applicant has agreed to increase the affordable housing offer to 50%. Further details of that can be found on the first front page of the update sheet in front of you today. And that also sets out the proposed affordable housing mix. So that would represent 125 units out of the 250. With regard to education, no education contributions have been requested. This is as a result of Essex County Council, who are the lead local education authority, not requesting such contributions in their consultation response on the application. They did, however, request that review mechanisms are secured via the Section 106 agreement to enable the demand for primary and secondary school places to be considered as the development progresses. Officers requested that Essex explain how the review mechanism would comply with the SEAL regulations and so to be SEAL compliant. However, no response has been received. Officers have also sought advice in respect of this review mechanism, which has confirmed that the request is not SEAL compliant. The advice states that if the requested review mechanism were to be included in the Section 106 agreement, the associated planning and permission would be vulnerable to legal challenge. There is also no policy basis for imposing a review mechanism. Therefore, for these reasons, and in light of Essex County Council's consultation response, no education contributions or a review mechanism is requested or required in this particular instance. I won't go through the other infrastructure contributions in detail there, but you can see those set out on your screen in front of you. So roughly amounting to totaling just over 1.3 million. So turning to the planning balance, so this slide sets out what officers consider to be the positives and negatives of the proposed development. So I'll start with the positives first. So the proposal constitutes the appropriate development of grey belt land in officers' opinion, and it complies with the golden rules, which carry significant weight in favour of the proposal. The council's own evidence base weighs very heavily in favour of the proposal. The contribution that the site makes to the greenbelt purposes are considered to be limited, and this also carries significant weight in favour of the application. In terms of deliverability, the proposed development would provide a significant amount of market and affordable housing. As I said before, we're now looking at 50% affordable housing within a 5-year deliverable time frame. It would contribute towards the council's 5-year housing land supply, which is currently only at 1.88 years, and this carries significant weight in favour of the application. In addition, the environmental and local community benefits, including the economic benefits, weigh moderately in favour of the application. These briefly comprise, and the list isn't exhausted, but we spoke about the creation of 7.8 hectares of open space for the benefit of both existing residents and future occupiers, increased buffer planting adjacent to the ancient woodland, the provision of formal and informal spaces, community gardens, and 6 new play facilities. It also includes the provision of an all-weather service for the existing public right-of-way, with additional various leisure walking paths provided throughout the site, which would improve the existing walking choice on offer and potentially diverting people away from the ancient woodland. Also, the proposal would provide a strategic cycling walking through the site, connecting Thriftwood Lane with Langdon Road. As I touched on before, biodiversity net gain would result in 25% increase in habitat units on site and a 15% increase in hedgerow units. Other improvements, as I said before, would include the delivery of local cycling and walking improvements along Langdon Road, and that would be funded by the developer itself. It would also include bus service enhancements and a contribution to facilitate an enhanced bus route, which will provide an hourly and evening service along the Ty Common Road corridor, and this would connect with Basildon and other parts of Billericay, including Billericay Station, local shops, services and infrastructure. And it would also provide a route to Basildon Hospital, the Sporting Village, Festival Leisure Park, and this would improve frequency, accessibility and routing. In addition, there would be enhancements to the actual bus stops themselves entire Common Road, and these would include raised and drop curb sets and the provision of real-time information board, making these services more accessible for members of the public. In terms of economic benefits, there would be increased expenditure for local shops and services. The proposal would also provide an employment and skills plan, which will support the ongoing delivery of local employment, training courses and apprenticeships, together with a financial contribution to broker job opportunities from the development itself. And again, as I touched upon before, the site is also located within a sustainable location. So in terms of the negatives there, you can see before you, the proposal would result in a significant localised level of harm to the openness of the Greenbelt, which is afforded substantial negative weight against the proposal. Also recognised is the low level of less than substantial harm to the Billericay Conservation Area, which is a heritage asset, and also recognises the low level of harm to the non-designated heritage asset, the former Quilter School. And also we need to take into account the loss of agricultural land, which carries limited negative weight in officers' opinion against the proposal. Therefore, to conclude, officers consider that the proposed development would have a significant, albeit localised impact on the openness of this undeveloped Greenbelt site. However, the proposal constitutes the appropriate development of Greybelt land. In addition, the proposal complies with the Golden Rules, carrying significant weight in favour of the grant of permission, and this is in accordance with paragraph 158 of the NPPF. Therefore, the development is not considered to be inappropriate. Whilst the proposed development would result in a low level of less than substantial harm to the Billericay Conservation Area and a low level of harm to the non-designated heritage asset, the former Quilter School, officers consider that these low-level harms would be significantly outweighed by the public benefits of the scheme. However, should members consider that the development is inappropriate, paragraph 153 of the NPPF is relevant and permission should not be approved except in very special circumstances. It is, however, considered that all of the harms identified, which include the heritage low-level harms, the harm to the local landscape character and its setting, the loss of agricultural land, and to the openness of the Greenbelt, are, in the opinion of officers, clearly outweighed by the very special circumstances that have been evidenced in this application. The proposals would not therefore conflict with the safe policies of the Basildon local plan when taken as a whole. Within this overall balance, it's considered that national Greenbelt policies do not provide a clear reason for refusing the development, and officers consider that the adverse impacts of granting permission in this particular instance do not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. And for these reasons, the application is recommended for approval, subject to no calling powers being exercised by the Secretary of State at the completion of the Section 106 agreement and the conditions which are set out on pages 110 to 127 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise, for a very substantial report. Thank you very much. I'm now going to open it up to members for clarifications. Councillor Blake.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's an exceptionally well delivered report. Just a couple of questions, which is one of the reasons why I decided to put myself back on this, so that I can actually ask the question. Can you explain to me, and possibly some of the other people listening, exactly what these golden rules are? Because we keep on seeing it on there, and I think myself and others, hence so I can make that informed decision. If you can explain that, please.
Yeah, sure. As I say, it's very new to us because the NPPF was only published on 12th of December, so we've just been trying to get our head around it ourselves. So forgive me, I'm just going to refer to notes here. But yeah, it's obviously set out within the NPPF. So just bear with me, thank you. Okay, so the main paragraph will be paragraph 156. So it states that where major development involving the provision of housing is proposed on land either released from the Greenbelt through a plan preparation or review, which doesn't count in this instance, or on sites in the Greenbelt subject to a planning application, the following contributions, or these are the golden rules, should be made. So there's 3 of those, A, B and C listed. These are affordable housing, or relate to affordable housing. Just sorry, flicking through because there's footnotes as well on that. Yeah. B, being necessary improvements to local or national infrastructure. And C, the provision of new or improvements to existing green spaces that are accessible to the public. It states that new residents should be able to access good quality green space within a short walk of their home, whether through on-site provision or through access to off-site spaces. So they are the golden rules.
So what you're saying, by building houses, gives people better access into a field that's already there, and rather than building houses, which actually prevents people from walking through those fields. So I don't, on that alone, I don't see how it applies that golden rule that you're emphasising there. If you mentioned what I'm saying, I will reiterate that again. You're saying it gives people better access into that area. Well, it clearly doesn't, because you're going to be putting housing which people's private housing, so they won't be able to get that. So that golden rule alone surely doesn't apply. Please, if you can confirm that.
Councillor Blake, paragraph 156 of the MPPF is what we have to abide by. We have no other policies that we can look at. We have no adopted local plan, so we are at risk all over anyway. What the actual paragraph, the paragraph is very clear. I can read the paragraph out, but the paragraph is very clear what it accepts. It's a three-part test. It's not an and or, it's an and. So you have to meet all the tests to get there, and that is affordable housing, which basically which is at 50%, and it's set out. It's a blended approach. Set out in the update sheet. We've got affordable rent at 54 units, shared ownership at 46 units, social rent at 13 units, and first homes, which is discounted housing, at 12 units. So actually, it meets the test in terms of necessary improvements to local or national infrastructure. Obviously, we've been to our relevant stakeholders and partners in terms of infrastructure, and we have met the infrastructure requirements for all those parties. And in terms of the provision of new or improved existing green spaces accessible to the public, new residents should be able to access good quality green spaces with a short walk from their home, whether through on-site provision or through access to off-site spaces. So in those terms, in a paragraph 156, those tests are reached. We have no other policies to place that against. So in those terms, but that's why, for your purposes as members, because obviously this is new, we've done the additional test it against inappropriateness. So we have gone back and looked at it in terms of how we deal with Greenbelt, looking at inappropriate development, and then producing you a balanced report that balances that against and if you want to put that slide back up, that Louise set out for you, that shows you the balance, and that is written in the report for you, and that's the balance that we've done, the planning balance, and that is quite well established within the report. So we've given you a very well-rounded report that sets out both those matters for you.
Councillor Blake.
Yeah, if I come back. I accept that, what you're saying there, and it does say it complies with golden rules. I think they should actually say complies with 2 of the 3 golden rules, because I can't understand how anybody can think that what they've got there now, where they've got clear access to people who want to walk through that by building 250 houses with gardens and everything else, which they won't be able to walk through because they're private dwellings, how it hits that golden rule. I just can't understand that. You're taking an area that they can walk now away from them, so that it can't possibly happen. I accept the other 2, got no problem with that, but the golden rules as they are, you're not hitting all the 3 golden rules, surely, unless I'm totally misreading it, and probably everybody else behind me as well are misreading that.
Thank you, Councillor Baker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Louise, can you confirm how many hectares of space on this site is currently accessible to the public?
It's only the public right-of-way that runs through it that is accessible. The rest is obviously in private ownership.
So none?
I mean, people can go onto the land. There's no physical barrier from the public
So
right
there's
of way.
no public access whatsoever to any of this site other than
The
public footpath 23.
Yeah, that's right. Correct.
And just follow-up question, how many hectares of space are available within the proposal for public access?
7.8 hectares.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Is there any more questions, Councillor Moore?
Just a couple of things, and I know we touched briefly on my very brief entrance into the technical briefing yesterday. The emergency exit, just want to clarify on that. I think you explained it reasonably well there. Nothing else other than emergency services will have access to that. And did we say last night, or hinted at, we could make it a condition that it's a physical barrier? So that basically, like keys, some places have a keyed one, because I know Councillor Baker down there actually said he know an area where it was the same process happened, but there was no barrier to stop people doing it. And could also confirm that will incorporate the council refuse not being able to use that as well. And just for clarification, do we know where whilst the building is taking place, where the access will be for the lorries and whatnot? So I assume they won't be able to go through that area either. If we can just, but it's more the barrier that we need to actually put, in my opinion, eventually put into it. So I'm not against that. It's just clarification on that.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of emergency access, yeah, it's obviously only through this point. There are 2 bollards proposed in place, which will be locked. So obviously it would just be emergency vehicles only that could come through at that point, release the bollards and drive through as necessary. Yeah, so there's 2, it's very, very small, but there are 2 circles in there which are the bollards which would restrict that access. You can see on that plan. The other points you said were about access during construction, so there's no intention to access, there wouldn't be any access during construction of Thriftwood Lane. All the access would be via Langdon Road. Again, that obviously applies to residents, visitors and anyone that isn't obviously a member of the emergency services, so the same would apply to refuse collections as well, or via Langdon Road.
Councillor Blake, I think that to deal with Councillor Blake's concerns, I think we should put additional condition that requires those bollards to be retained in perpetuity. I think otherwise we could lose them and they can never be replaced. So if you can actually add that as additional condition, I think that will just strengthen up that matter for us. Thank you very much.
Councillor Blake, I think last night Mark Lawrence from the Highways, he did actually say that there's significant things that will come along the way that we will be able to pass. So those things will be sorted by Highways. Thank you. Is that? I think it was Councillor Myers.
Councillor Blake actually stole my thunder. The first thing I had on my list was about the emergency vehicle access, whether or not it was going to be secured by some form of locked compound using FB keys. The only slight issue I do have with using those sort of FB keys, obviously I know fire brigades have them, is that you can just buy them in the shop as well. You can go to a locksmith and just buy an FB key. So just a comment on that about sort of emergency access only lanes, obviously going down Thriftwood Lane. There's nothing to stop, say, a delivery driver who doesn't want to go down Langdon and to the end of the site, but coming down Thriftwood Lane instead to access the western part of the site, just getting his little key out on his key ring, not taking off the bollard and driving through him and not necessarily putting it back up again. So it's just a comment on how those things are accessed. But it's not a question because Kevin's already asked that.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Louise, can you just confirm the degree to which the developer is bound by the proposals that we've seen tonight, these indicative proposals?
They are indicative, so they aren't bound by them. Obviously, it gives you an idea of what the development could look like or how those 250 dwellings could be accommodated on the site. But as I say, if outline permission was granted, they would need to come back in with reserved matters, which would bring you the final details in terms of landscaping, appearance, design, and things like that. So they are just illustrative at this point.
Thank you. So what would the implications be if they came back with a completely different proposal at reserve matters stage?
We would need to obviously assess those and go through again the same sort of policy assessment to be made. So obviously all the issues there would be applicable again. So, you know, in terms of flood risk, neighbour impacts, you know, does it fit in with the character of the surrounding area, things like that really. So obviously highways implications, they would all need to be assessed again. So it wouldn't start again if permission was granted, the principle was there, we've accepted the access, but all the other issues would need to be judged separately, and we would need to be satisfied with those factors.
Louise, sorry, can you just put up the parameters plan, because that isn't, we're going to adopt, that's an adopted plan, isn't it? So
Yeah, so this is the parameter plan.
So in terms of Councillor Baker, that is where you can put, so that plan will be adopted. So a reserve matters application will have to comply with that. So you'll have the buffers, and so you'll see the difference between where we've got residential and where we've got green space. So those things are, so we've got what is agreed in the reserve matters outline is just the access, but what is agreed by condition is that parameters plan. So they would have to for each development would have to comply with that parameters plan. So you can see where the built form will be, and so all the protection against the residents' properties, protection against the woodlands would all be agreed through that process.
Councillor Baker.
Sorry, one last question from me. Louise, I got slightly confused when you were talking about the Frithwood Lane buffer. I think at one point I thought you said 15 to 25 metres, and then you seemed to say 55. So could you just confirm what the buffer would be?
Yeah, sorry if that's confusing.
No. Sorry, it's my fault.
No, 55 metres is the distance between the boundary itself to the ancient woodland, the Frithwood buffer, or the existing Frithwood boundary itself on the southern side to the nearest residential property. So on there it would be to the nearest white square, basically. That's 55 metres. All the other houses are beyond that, so they would exceed 55 metres. The other distances that you were talking about relate to the new, the new buffer itself. So there'll be along here. Can you see my cursor? There is quite a significant amount of planting being proposed, and that's the width of that planting that I was talking about. The 15 metres increasing, I think 25 off the top of my head. So that's the actual width of the planting itself.
So I'm still not clear what the 55 metres is. I'm sorry.
So 55 metres is the distance from the southern boundary, so the edge of Frithwood, to the nearest residential property.
Bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah, that's right. Beyond that, obviously, the distance increases.
Councillor Blake.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One of them that's been highlighted recently, so it's not, I'm not talking about Basil and Council in general, just a general observation here. We've seen in the papers literally today or yesterday about a council that passed planning permission for a particular company and it incorporated the affordable housing, and they're retracting on that. What guarantees can we give? I don't know if we can, it's a general question that we can give, that the 50% of these houses will be going to affordable housing in coalition with that. And on the other thing, which is important, which is again certainly from my point of view, being a Billericay and Bursted councillor, I understand that we're going to guarantee that every one of those affordable housings go to Billericay children. Can we confirm that that is the case? Because that's what the press have said. That's what a senior councillor has said. And I think it's very important that if that is going to happen, it might sway some of us to support that. So just on those two issues, particularly the one on whether what guarantee we can give, because that's probably a general one over any council, but also can you confirm whether all these affordable housing are going to Billericay children?
So, Councillor Blake, in terms of affordable housing, the affordable housing will be agreed by 106 agreement. If the site is sold on and a developer buys the site and they want to vary that planning obligation, they have to do it by by an application, and that has to come in front of elected members, and that has to be submitted with a full viability appraisal. So, as far as we're concerned, that is not, we would then have challenges about the application itself. So, we can't agree that without bringing it back to planning committee, and that is very clear. In terms of the nomination rights for those houses, nomination rights are related to the council's housing waiting list, and they'll be appropriated from that council waiting list. So I can't guarantee that the houses will go to Billericay residents. The more interesting one that we've added, so we've tried to get a blend of housing types on this one, and the one that is probably is quite useful is the discounted first homes. Now that will that will allow people who aren't, that's anybody can apply for those if you're a first time buyer, and they're discounted at rates which reduce the first purchase of that property. The property is reduced in price. So in terms of that's where, and we have got an obligation which seeks Basildon first residents on those houses as well. So those ones will. But in terms of affordable housing, I'm really sorry, that is to do with nomination rights, and that comes off the council's housing waiting list.
So just to confirm, the comment by the senior councillor in the paper that every of those houses will go to a Billericay child is not correct then?
Sorry, I don't know who actually said that, but allegedly, I do know that the rule, if it's still the same, is that you have to be resident in this area for 7 years before you're considered.
No, I know that. I know that, and I knew the answer that was coming my way. But just wanted to confirm that the case that was not true. What was in the paper?
Well, you can't always believe what's in the paper, but we will look at that for you. Thank you. Okay, we've got no more clarifications, so let me now open it up to the public. So, first of all, can I call our County Councillor and Councillor, Dr. Richard Moore from the Bursted Ward, please?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chairman. As you're aware, I'm a Bursted Ward councillor. The application is in the Bursted Ward, and I'm speaking on behalf of my residents. I would just remind members that the NPPF was revised on December the 12th, 2024. That's only 15 working days ago. This introduced novel designations, including grey belt, and the green belt itself, a concept originating in the 19th century, has had its most significant alteration since introduced in the mid-1950s. This latest iteration of the NPPF states at paragraph 142 that the government attaches great importance to green belts. It clearly states that the fundamental aim of green belt policy is to prevent urban sprawl by keeping land permanently open, as the essential characteristics of greenbelt are, of course, their openness and their permanence. This paragraph is the same as paragraph 137 in the previous 2023 edition of the NPPF. However, the new paragraph 155B states that, and I quote, development in the greenbelt should also not be regarded as inappropriate where there is a demonstrable unmet need for the type of development proposed. This paragraph is clearly a game changer regarding Billericay's greenbelt. So, Madam Chairman, what we have, on the one hand, paragraph 142 states that the government attaches great importance to greenbelts, and on the other hand, paragraph 155 states development in the greenbelt should not be regarded as inappropriate where, according to the government's redefined standard methodology of calculating housing requirements, the lack of deliverable housing sites and/or the housing delivery tests are below 75% of the housing requirement over the previous 3 years, and the proposed development would be in a sustainable location. So there we have it in a nutshell. Every Greenbelt site in Billericay is now effectively available to build on. This area in Laindon Road, Billericay, is or was Greenbelt and is high-grade, productive agricultural land that is categorised as Grade 3A or 3B, meaning it is good quality agricultural land. In the applicant's submission, it is made clear that this area has been used as agricultural land since at least 1874. Then we come to the golden rules. The NPPF states the proposed development will provide, quote, the necessary improvements, end quote, to local infrastructure. Unfortunately, residents feel that carving up the existing pavement into a cycle lane plus footpath, reducing the width of Laindon Road to accommodate cycling, adding a pedestrian crossing and eliminating on-road parking are hardly necessary improvements to the local infrastructure. In addition, we are told at paragraph 156C that the proposed development will provide high-quality open space that we, the public, will be able to access. This really is a nonsense. We already have access to the high-quality open green space in this location with footpath 23, a public right-of-way across open farmland that was greenbelt before December the 12th last year. The last time I walked this, it was high-quality open green space with no housing estate spoiling my view. The committee needs to be mindful of the cumulative effect of the application together with other applications in Billericay already approved, such as Kennel Lane, Southend Road, Maitland Lodge, together with pending applications in London Road and Mount Nessing Road, which will result in a total of some 1,100 plus new homes being built on what was a green belt in Billericay over the next few years. Finally, Madam Chairman, we have in the report 14 pages about the green belt, which concludes that our valuable green belt, which has been green belt for many, many years, is now grey belt, and as if by magic it changed overnight. Well, of course, it is not magic. It is this government's view that green belt, particularly in the southeast of the country, has, in fact, little value when the objective is to build and build. The outlook, Madam Chairman, for Billericay as a historic town surrounded by greenbelt is bleak indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Moore. Can I now call Alastair Dorr, please? Alastair, if you'd like to come forward, there's a computer there. Yeah.
Thanks. This is a much loved and sensitive green space, and I think even those who see a lot of upside in large-scale building would put this spot way down on their list of potential building locations. The public is currently being asked to submit their views on this site as part of the local plan consultation, so it is particularly regrettable, if understandable, that it's being decided today rather than as part of the plan process. The site is being interpreted as grey belt because it's not considered to adequately contribute to green belt purposes. It's one of the first sites anywhere in the country to be determined on grey belt grounds, putting planners and councillors in a tough position. One challenge is that there's no standard way of determining all this, though a December letter from Angela Rayner published just today says guidance will come very soon. Another difficulty is that the draft plan says the extent of grey belt will be determined as part of the plan process, though the current draft hasn't done that yet. So to assess grey belt, prematurely perhaps, the Council is relying on an advisory consultant-produced report. Basildon has a problem of having two such green belt reviews, two versions of the truth, chalk and cheese. The original review of 2017 found that this site emphatically met Greenbelt purposes, and the Government Planning Advisory Service found the approach robust. Last year's new Greenbelt study took a different approach and decided the site was of little value, hence grey belt. A weakness with the new study is that this area is judged together with bits and pieces of other areas. For instance, Bell Hill Close, a street built on Greenbelt in 2011, and which is still technically Greenbelt. So lumping this application site in with Brownfield has skewed the outcome. Ideally, the council would wait for that clarification from the government, or alternatively draw on both versions of the truth, and so to continue to defend the land as green rather than grey belt. A few quick words on the cycleway. This isn't a strategic housing development in the sense that it contributes less than 1% of the borough's 20-year housing target, but Langdon Road is a strategic route, and the proposed cycleway will narrow it, with all kinds of impacts locally and more widely. This may preclude the strategic option of making Langdon Road two-way as part of the local plan. The last plan thought the idea had significant benefits. It would be putting the cart before the horse to degrade a strategic highway as part of a piecemeal development like this. I know we haven't had an objection from Essex, perfectly illustrating the current dysfunction between boroughs and county, but with the issue so clear, so significant, it's surely possible to reject it without their input. At the very least, a deferral to clarify the impact and request specific feedback from Essex seems prudent. Ideally, this would allow the fate of the scheme to be decided in its best context as part of a strategic, cohesive local plan. Thanks.
Alistair. Can I now call Deborah Taylor, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I object to the proposed development because it is on agricultural land. The Agricultural Land Classification and Soil Resources Report submitted by the applicant, Gleeson Land, states that 100% is Grade 2 agricultural land. Of this, 73% is Grade 2 or 3A, which means it is very good quality agricultural land. So that's the map, and all of it is agricultural, and this is mixed of good and very good agricultural land. The grades are extremely rare in this area and highlight the good geology along the north-south Billericay Ridge. In the MPPF, and I don't know if that's the latest one, such land is deemed to be best and most versatile and should not be considered for development. This fact is totally overlooked in the officer's report, with the impression that given that this land is not valuable from an agricultural perspective, being broad brush considered to be generally grade 3. This area has been farmed for as long as anyone can remember, probably for centuries. It has never been developed and has provided local employment and income from farming activities. The reason the area to the north of the development, Scrub Rise and beyond, was developed, but this area wasn't, is because it is agricultural land. In recent years, the land has provided haylage, which is highly valued. In previous years, crops have been grown. It has contributed and can contribute in the future to our national food security. In addition to all this, the area is wildlife rich with many red-listed birds used in the area, notably skylark, yellowhammer and common whitethroat. The number of bird species used in the land has increased in recent years, with the red kite, buzzard and tawny owls becoming more numerous. These are birds of the open countryside and will not use the habitats created with the built environments, within the built environment. When you consider the agricultural merits of the land, the fact that it has never been developed, that it has historically contributed well to the purposes of Greenbelt, I find it incredible that all those values are being ignored and the land downgraded to a grey belt only a few months after it had been classed as high-quality Greenbelt. This is a biodiversity-rich open farmland and should remain so. Whilst this generation may be grateful for houses, the next generation may be more grateful that we can grow food. On your planning balance, loss of agricultural land, limited negative weight gain is a disgrace, and I would challenge that. Thank you for listening to me. I urge you to reject this application.
Thank you, Deborah Taylor. Can we have Gavin Taylor, please? Yes.
To listen, these mics are too far away from people's voices, and also people do actually.
Yes, of course. You've pressed the red button.
He pressed it.
Oh,
I
okay,
press it.
You've got 3 minutes, sir.
I'm reading from a script. Good evening. Thank you for letting residents speak at this planning meeting. Christine Lyons spoke on Monday at the local plan meeting about infrastructure and that there are plenty of school places in the borough. That may be borough-wide, but I undertook a straw poll this morning and the majority of schools around Billericay said that apart from a space here and there, they are all full and have waiting lists. One in particular, junior school, which is very close to the proposed development, 2 years ago they increased class sizes to 34 a class, and physically the school could not hold more children. The school was originally built as an infant school, so the classrooms and hall are not really big enough, and the library is now a teaching room. The changing room is now a storage room. Similarly, the infant school has 30 per class, which is the maximum legally allowed. The school is always significantly oversubscribed, and living in a catchment area is no guarantee of a school place now. The lack of school places can be compounded when siblings need schooling. Again, another example is where two families have more than one child and one child is accepted into the school, but not the other. Both sets of parents had to find another school or be homeschooled. Further consequences. People have moved into the area but not sought school places until they move into the area and become stuck due to the lack of places for their children. Schools have been told to raise their class numbers exceeding the legal maximum. Children will be driven to school which is not in their neighbourhood at peak times on longer car journeys across the borough, with parents also trying to get to work on time. Children will not be able to foster school friendships easily as they're commuting and their school friends are from different areas of the borough. The upshot is that cumulatively, with Kennel Lane, Maitland Lodge and South End Road developments which have already been approved, there is no space for the children to go to a local school in Billericay. Waiting lists will get bigger for places. As a last resort, local authorities have to find somewhere for the children. Regarding the above comment on school places, how many extra car journeys will be made at least twice a day for school trips on our already congested roads? The roads are already too busy and gridlocked around Billericay, as Billericay is on top of a very steep hill and people can't walk or cycle into town or when they are leaving town. Turning to other infrastructure concerns, there are insufficient doctors' surgeries and even the senior staff at Essex NHS insist the plans will result in unacceptable development without investment in doctors' surgeries and healthcare facilities. That's a quote in the Evening Echo, 2nd January. The NHS has also stated in the London Road proposed development that GP capacity is below the expected standard for the existing population. 3 paragraphs. Finally, if the development is to proceed, I can see that the development will only have heat pumps and EV chargers. However, these make quite a noise, and what will mitigate their collective noise in the neighbourhood? Also, where on the plan will the substation be placed, and how big does this need to be? There's no mention of that. I'm also concerned that the sewage manhole 6402 in Frithwood Lane, which is at the bottom of the 30-metre drop, will not be able to accommodate the flow, and with potential rainfall water too will be overwhelmed. The Laindon Road manhole 4701 is uphill, and how will this cope too? Thank you.
Can I call Councillor Chris May, Billericay Town Councillor, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Billericay Town Council Planning Committee, as a statutory consultee, has twice reviewed this proposal and twice raised objections, which are a matter of record. Our concerns, I think, revolve around three key areas. A, Billericay Town Council asserts that there are insufficient special circumstances to justify this development. First, housing need. Notwithstanding externally imposed targets, the only proven need locally is for more affordable housing, not the additional mixed housing that is being proposed. Greenbelt performance. Contributing value has been deliberately and inappropriately downplayed to suit the purposes of the applicant and the council. Environmental benefits. Those claimed are low impact and not offset by the harm caused by the removal of the greenbelt. Local community benefits. A cycle lane that will be little used and result in more traffic congestion on Langdon Road, and an hourly bus service that would do little to reduce car journeys is little compensation to Billericay's residents for the 3, 4, 5 years disruption during construction and the loss of the green belt. B. Billericay Town Council contends that this development is in contravention of policy BE12, causes material harm to the surrounding area by inappropriate reclassification and removal of valued green belt. This land has previously, as has been already said, classified as making a significant contribution to Greenbelt purposes A, B, C and D, forms a green corridor to Mill Meadows SSI and to Langdon Common open area, prevents merging between Billericay and Little Bursted settlements, threatening the viability and ecology of the ancient woodland and harming the setting and integrity of Billericay Conservation Area, as is explained clearly in the officer's report in paragraph 513. Specifically, BTC is both concerned and alarmed that the evidence base for reclassifying this green belt to so-called grey belt in the case for approval is the discredited, shabby and wholly inaccurate 2023 green belt review carried out by land use consultants. This reverses decades of consensus over Billericay's green belt and is thoroughly contested by Billericay Town Council, as evidenced by correspondence and dialogue that we're having with the planning department currently. BTC argues that such reclassification can only be taken within the scope of an adopted local plan, which does not yet exist. C. Lack of supporting infrastructure risks a non-sustainable community. As proposed, S106 proposals are inadequate to support a new community of 600 to 700 residents as follows: education, no additional school places; health, no additional GP services; roads, no realistic traffic mitigation measures. In conclusion, it's proposed to remove Greenbelt for this development using powers that can only be enacted within an agreed local plan. As already stated, these are sound grounds to reject the application. The stated very special circumstances are not justified. Insufficient infrastructure for a sustainable community. BTC therefore recommends that this application be rejected or may only be revisited once a fully consulted, approved and adopted local plan is in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris May. Can I now ask Kim Barford to come along and speak, please?
Right, good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the Planning Committee. I speak as a Billericay resident and I would like to talk of just three matters that really concern me. The site in question, being part of the larger H4 area, is actually classed as being of higher landscape sensitivity. Being rich in agricultural importance has been spoken of already, fauna and wildlife habitat, including the wonderful birds, badgers and bats as well that are regularly seen, and there are roosts within Frithwood who actually use all the existing hedgerows and trees to actually find their way around. The Church of England, I understand, also own mineral rights to this part of the H4, a point that was missed from the planning officer's report. Surely this area, relatively small within the overall extent of the sites put forward for development, should be continued to be protected for all and future generations. Flood risk. Many people regularly walk the public rights of way that cross the existing site and border. It's great exercise, the site being considered being 97 metres above sea level at the northwest, which then falls down to 67 metres at its western extent, abutting Frithwood Lane. A considerable drop in old money of, say, 100 feet, and certainly not a gentle fall. In winter months, the stream and gullies to the north beyond Scrub Rise flow considerably, and those south of the site, where it meets the ancient woodland, northeast to southwest even more so, have been breached at times. There are only a couple of months of the year at most that the eastern bottom of the site is not water sodden, and indeed water is visible in the field for a major part of the year already. I would be happy to share photos that I've documented over the year. Within this application, a sustainable drainage system, SUDS, is being proposed by Gleeson Land, who are looking to sell the land onto another development, as has already happened at a number of sites across the borough. I am not an engineer, but wish to question the capability of a SUDS system which would require ongoing maintenance, the cost of which it is proposed by Gleeson Land would be met by the eventual homeowners across the site within a service charge arrangement. It all sounds rather flimsy, particularly with recent national news in mind regarding flooding in other parts of the country. The SUD system within the report details rain gardens to roads and car parks to ecologically clean and store surface water, with maintenance of 2 basin ponds at the lowest extent, which you may have seen in the visuals, which I feel could be a safety risk, certainly to families and young people within the area. I question and feel that this is a most unsuitable greenbelt development. Historically, an Essex-based major development across Billericay at Queen's Park, Norsey Farm and Meadow Rise, Moody Homes, coming up to 50 years ago now, deemed the site unsuitable for development then. I'm assuming with the above points in mind. More building has taken place in the intervening years to areas in and around Langdon Road, the highest point being at Sun Corner, and these appear to have exacerbated the drainage problem. This further flags up that this application is, I consider, ill-conceived and inconsiderate. So many issues, including certain misleading statements, not even, particularly those mentioned within the NPPF in only 15 days ago. Surely this is not a time to actually approve this application, but rather to actually not support it or defer to a later date. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kim Barford. I do apologise. I should have called Vanessa Carter. But can she come now?
Good evening. I'm objecting to this application for the following reasons. The Council's 5-year housing land supply position has not improved despite planning permissions being granted for around 7,000 dwellings. Projections indicate that fewer than 2,000 will be built over the next 5 years. This discrepancy raises questions about the effectiveness of current planning strategies and the necessity of altering greenbelt designations. Simply approving more applications, especially in sensitive areas, is not working. It's not sustainable and it defies logic. Existing permissions would more than fulfil current local housing needs. This proposal will do very little to boost the 5-year housing supply with only 250 houses. Only 50 homes a year would be delivered to manage credit costs, cash flow, and so not to flood the market and reduce their prices. In total, a highly disruptive construction phase of more than 6 years. The Kennel Lane development, brought forward by the same land promoter, Gleeson's, is only now getting started, 2 years after approval. There was a long delay with the site while Gleeson's negotiated with builders before eventually appointing the Hill Group. The same applies to this location. The Church of England owning the mineral rights to the west will complicate and slow down the process of Gleeson finding a developer. The Council's methodology recommends 100 metres buffer as a minimum around ancient woodlands, but the proposal comes in much closer at 15 metres, and that will be really damaging. Footpath 23 runs through the site. This is an ancient trackway that provides the most direct link between Billericay and Little Bursted, and no doubt has done so for centuries. It provides significant amenity value to residents and is extensively used by walkers, runners and dog walkers. Today, it is a safe, quiet and very rural path. I have serious concerns about the safety, both during any construction phase and on completion, very specifically the section at Langdon Road End, where it is being proposed to run in parallel to and be bisected by the estate road. Where the path is crossed by the road appears to be a point where a number of hazards are likely to exist. At that point, the road has 2 bends and a slope between 2 levels of development. However, I see no details of a safe crossing point being established in the officer's report. Furthermore, I can see nothing on how the path will be maintained in the future. Today, it falls within the remit of the landowner and tenant farmer. The loss of the open and rural aspect of the footpath will be hugely detrimental to the health and well-being of the community. A right-of-way through a housing estate is not comparable. The proposed development will compromise the usability of the path and remove its current amenity, and therefore I'm urging you to reject this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa Carter. Could I call Danny Ryan, please?
Good evening. I object to the planning plan of Langdon Road for the total sum of 250 houses. I would like to speak really with regard to the local road pressures, which is going to be caused with so much building work going on in the area, especially if one considers Sun Corner, which is already a bottleneck, no doubt about it. And taking in consideration the planning going on at Kennel Lane and 2 other sites that have already been agreed, this is going to put so much pressure on Sun Corner. It's already a nightmare to get through there in a rush hour. And I noted on the documentation from yourselves that a survey was paid for by Barrett Developments, who'd done the survey in terms of traffic going through the area. And looking at it, I could only imagine that they counted the cars coming through down to that roundabout at the end of Langdon Road. They must have done it at midnight, because it certainly didn't add up to the numbers that I've counted in the last couple of days that I've actually gone up there in the rush hour. It's going to be a nightmare. You know, basically, sure, we need building, no doubt about it, and we have to get on with it. And you guys, you've got a hell of a job. But I just feel that the Langdon project, it only has 1 road coming into Langdon Road. It's ridiculous. It's in the wrong place. I agree, we need more housing, but that project, coupled with the farming situation and the green belt, is really just, it's in the wrong place. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Danny Ryan. I believe we do have Greg McManus now, but is going to talk to us remotely.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for your time this evening. I apologise that I'm unable to attend this meeting in person. As a local resident in Quilters Drive, I wish to highlight key objections to this planning application. These 250 homes would be alongside the unique and ancient woodland, which clearly would result in a large increase in population and foot traffic, causing irreparable damage. The council, along with us residents, carry a huge responsibility in protecting this ancient woodland for future generations. These proposed dwellings would cause a significant increase in traffic on now proposed even narrower single lane Langdon Road, impacting hugely on residents and hundreds of school children attending the two nearby schools, with greater potential of injury and possible death. The dramatic increase in congestion and increased pollution on Langdon Road, also I agree at Sun Corner and surrounding roads, would inappropriately impact on our local health and our access to facilities and local businesses in and around Billericay, as there are no dual carriageways. There is a vastly better road infrastructure in and around Basildon, where there are also alternative green, grey and brownfield sites for building new affordable homes. There is not sufficient infrastructure in Billericay to support this large increase in population by way of schools, medical facilities, retail parks, cinemas and sports complexes as there is in Basildon, particularly with the imminent closure of the doctor's surgery at South Green and already crowded schools. This productive agricultural land, which has never been developed upon, aligns with a much-used public footpath and is an invaluable area providing much-needed physical and mental health benefits, all of which will be destroyed and confined to an alleyway cut across by a new road. Developers are clearly focused on Billericay to obtain higher purchase prices for homes with no requirement to pay for additional infrastructure. This can't be right, particularly given the logical large rise in local demand for schooling, sports and medical facilities. I understand the pressure on the council from the new government to enable the building of thousands of new homes, but these should be in appropriate locations with investment from the developers on the needed infrastructure, and this proposed location west of Langdon Road is not an appropriate location. So along with local rate-paying residents in Billericay, I desperately urge this planning meeting to reject or at least defer the decision on the developer's plans and select other appropriate locations which can benefit from new homes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Greg McManus. Thank you. We have a letter now that Christine Lyons is going to read out by Councillor Schrader.
Dear colleagues, I regret I'm unable to attend the Planning Committee in person. This application is in the Greenbelt and should be refused. Instead, by sleight of hand, it's redesignated Greybelt through the convenience of the 2023 Greenbelt study, slipped into the evidence base unseen and unchallenged by elected members. This desktop exercise contradicts the more thorough 2017 study, which included this site and scored this land as contributing highly towards the Greenbelt purposes. The 2023 study conveniently assesses it as low, zero. Land across Billericay has been downgraded in a cynical way. It is a stitch-up. It is procedurally improper, as the MPPF requirement is that Greybelt be designated only as part of a local plan. The development will cause a coalescence between Billericay and Little Bursted, closing the gap, keeping our communities separate and distinct, resulting in urban sprawl. It is also high-grade, productive agricultural land, vital to our future food security. Essex highways remain negligent as usual, indifferent to additional traffic to the development will generate on Langdon Road, already busy and subject to regular congestion at Sun Corner. The site's peripheral location also makes it unsustainable, being a 30-minute walk to the nearest services and not currently supported by any direct public transport. Add to this the key pressures, including GPs, with the South Green surgery due to close, schools and dentists. The western end of Frithwood is prone to flooding. The historic open and rural aspect of footpath 23 from Langdon Road to Frithwood risks being eliminated. There will be significant loss of trees across the site, which is rich in biodiversity, acting as a wildlife corridor for badgers, bats and many nesting red list birds, linking Frithwood and Langdon Common both identified local wildlife sites. This site is included in the draft local plan, subject to ongoing Regulation 18 consultation. It is an affront to democracy to determine the application now. In its previous iteration, the whole area is subject to a proper master planning. The application should be refused or deferred until this process is complete. This council should not allow piecemeal development. I respectfully urge colleagues to reject the recommendation by refusing planning permission or deferring the application until response to the public consultation, including those relating to this site, have been properly analysed and considered. Andrew Sharder.
We have another one here from Richard Holden MP.
Oh, no, so I've got one from...
oh, no.
This is from Great Bursted and South Green Parish Council.
No, I haven't got that on my list.
Well, I've got it.
Okay, all right, okay.
Sorry, I was handed a late submission. This is from Councillor Marie. Dear Great Bursted and South Green Village, I would be grateful if you could point out that that had Great Bursted and South Green Village Council had been asked to comment on the application, we would have most likely objected on the grounds of cumulative impact of this development of 250 homes in very close proximity to Kennel Lane site of 200 homes, not far from the South End Road site of 99 homes, and Maitland Lodge of 50 homes on the South End Road. The Langdon Road application would have an adverse effect on the infrastructure of the roads, medical facilities, schools, and with the parish of Great Bursted and South Green, and of course on the Greenbelt. The Kennel Lane site and the two South End sites have been approved in the parish of South Green. The traffic on the A176 Nocal Road is going to be horrendous.
Thank you, Christine, for reading those out for us. Can I call Martin Mordecai to read out a letter from our MP for Billericay, which is Richard Holden.
Sorry, Mo, I thought that Richard Holden was going to be the last, and I thought that Andy Baggett's one, which I did indicate that Martin would read out, because I did indicate when I had a conversation that he's in hospital. Yeah, kind of Mordecai's going to do that, and then he's going to... No, that's fine. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mo.
Fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. As you're aware, I'm the Bursted Ward councillor, and his application is in Bursted Ward. I'm speaking on behalf of my residents. I'm concerned that we have lost the infrastructure first as a planning strategy, and it appears that infrastructure is being treated as a nice-to-have rather than an integral part of the planning process. According to the ECC school planning for 2024-2033, no expansion projects are proposed for the infant and junior schools in Billericay, such as Brightside, Butsbury, Quilters, South Green, St Peters and Sunnymead schools. There are also no plans to expand either Mayflower or Billericay schools. The addition of some 1,100 homes in Billericay, either approved planning applications, Kennel Lane, South End Road, Maitland Lodge, or upcoming unapproved applications such as Langdon Road, Heath Close, Mount Nessing Road and London Road have not been considered in the ECC school plan. Everybody in Billericay knows that traffic is a big problem, especially around Sun Corner, Sun Street, Langdon Road and High Street. However, the report before you concentrates on new cycle routes, local cycle and walking improvements. And of course, we mustn't forget the residential travel information packs at 5.5.4, alongside bus and cycle vouchers. I do not want to underestimate the impact these initiatives will have on the Sun Corner traffic problem. There are today 209 properties in this area of Langdon Road, including School Road, Roman Way, Quilters Drive and Archers Close. This application of 250 homes would double residential properties in the area, putting enormous pressure on London Road itself and of course Sun Corner. A transport assessment, 5.518, has been conducted with sensitivity assessments and a cumulative impact note where the Highways Authority have concluded that the transport assessment and associated cumulative report represent a robust position of the highways network in the vicinity. Astonishingly, the transport modelling results shows that the South End Road, A176 and A129 junction will continue to operate below capacity without defining what that capacity is. The transport assessment on page 60 clearly states that this junction is anticipated to reach capacity even without this proposed development, and yet the Highway Authority remains silent on this. Laneham Road is a busy road, particularly for southbound traffic. Traffic counts conducted by the applicant in November 2023 show an average daily volume of 7,274 vehicles travelling south. A more up-to-date traffic count requested by my colleague Councillor Moore, conducted in October 2024, showed an average daily volume of 8,000 vehicles travelling south, a 10% increase in southbound traffic in 1 year. As I have outlined, Laneham Road is a very busy road, and yet the applicant proposes to narrow the road from 6.2 metres to 5.5 wide. The transport assessment, 4.5.23, states that to improve cycling and walking infrastructure on Laneham Road, it is proposed to have a shared pedestrian cycle route on the western side of the road. The shared pavement cycleway could have a width between 2.5 and 4 metres, which will be provided by narrowing Laneham Road itself, 6.2 metres wide, to something around 5.5 metres. This is surely completely unacceptable. Even the council's refuse trucks, which are around 2.5 metres wide, and if two trucks of this size or larger were to approach from opposite directions, they could clash. The report states that the existing on-road parking on the west side of Laneham Road, between its junctions with Churchview and School Road, would be withdrawn and re-provided under 5.5.11, with no indication where this re-provision would be. This is not included in the Transport Highways contributions at 5.17.21.22 or in the prior commencement conditions. Members on the committee should seek clarification on this point. The NHS has confirmed that the existing GP practices do not have the capacity for the additional growth resulting from this development and cumulative development in the area. However, I am pleased to note that the NHS has requested a sum of $124,000 be secured and increase healthcare floor space capacity in the area. Is this enough to build a new GP surgery or expand the existing surgeries? We know that local GP surgeries are constrained by their surgery footprint, so it's unclear what the sum will be for. No provision, however, has been made for NHS requirements such as hospital beds, emergency rooms, ambulances, etc. What are the implications on the new Pitsea Diagnostic Centre, Basildon Hospital, Orsett Hospital and Brentwood Community Hospital? The NHS is silent on these. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Mordecai. We have, is it?
This councillor, the MP's one now as well.
Oh, you've got the
Councillor
MP's
Mordecai's
letter,
a
sorry.
is a double hat.
I thought you turned off and that was it. Carry on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I apologise for not being with you in person, but there are votes now on legislation regarding a children's welfare education and a proposal for a national inquiry into child rape gang scandal that I must be present for. Whilst a Member of Parliament has no role in decisions on local planning, I feel it is incumbent upon me to speak up when so many of my constituency contact me, and especially when it is targets from central government that are a large part of both the pressures and the decisions being taken locally. The Laneham Road development is one of a number that, according to Councillor Callaghan's local plan, would, within a few years, see the merging of Basildon with Noak Bridge, Noak Hill, the Bursteds, South Green and Billericay as a contiguous conurbation. The fact that this development is not included as part of the local plan is just one reason why this decision itself should be postponed. Furthermore, within a few years, this application is seeing irreplaceable, high-grade agricultural greenbelt land reclassified as greybelt under new government rules. When it comes to local services, for schools, to doctors, to dentists, to the already overcrowded highways, I will leave others to talk cycle paths. it is not clear to me how any of the much needed extra infrastructure could be provided, or even the impact on existing services have been considered. At a time when Greater London is seeing its annual housing target slashed by 17,000 a year, I find it unbelievable that Councillor Callaghan welcomed the rise from 1,039 to 1,287, a rise of almost 25% in the number of new homes that Basildon Borough will have to take every year under the targets from the new government. The rise alone will see a development the size of this off Langdon Road thrust on our local community every year from a housing target that is not about meeting local need, but about capturing displacement from cuts to targets elsewhere, notably Greater London. I urge councillors to consider all these facts and the message they are sending to central government about their plans to concrete over towns and villages when they make their decision. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mordecai. Now can we go to Will Charlton, Planning Consultant?
Dear Chair and Planning Committee members, firstly I'd like to thank you for allowing the applicant, Gleeson Land, to speak. The development would address a genuine housing need within the borough, providing up to 250 dwellings on land to the south of Billericay, via an outline planning permission with subsequent submissions informed by an agreed design code and the parameter plan that you saw before. The site, which was identified within the withdrawn local plan, which included consideration of the Greenbelt, is a sustainable site, being within walking distance to the town centre and close to amenities. Vehicle, pedestrian and cycle access is proposed onto Landon Road, with only pedestrian and cycle, together with emergency vehicle access onto Frithwood Lane. Gleeson Land are happy to accept such a condition requiring this. The development would provide new pedestrian and cycle routes across the site, whilst retaining the existing unsurfaced public right-of-way, which currently crosses private land. Local cycle and walking improvements would be delivered towards the town centre at the developer's expense, whilst additional other improvements, a financial contribution of circa £658,000 will be paid towards bus service enhancements between Billericay and Basildon. The proposed development will provide 7.8 hectares of formal and informal open space for the benefit of existing and future occupiers, including several play areas. In addition, a contribution of £433,000 will be provided for open space, culture, play and sports provision off-site. The proposal's landscape-led approach means that the predicted 26% biodiversity net gain will be achievable on-site, considerably excess of the required 10%. All trees and hedgerows are to be retained where possible, whilst Frithwood will be protected by a private buffer, Frithwood being private land. £42,500 would be provided towards the delivery of health and wellbeing programmes in the facility, whilst £125,000 will be provided to the NHS healthcare improvements, together with £75,000 to broker job opportunities from the development. The scheme will deliver 250 high-quality homes, with 50%, 125 homes, being affordable, therefore considerably surpassing the Council's policy requirement while meeting the golden rules. The proposal will help those unable to get onto the housing ladder and to have a home through a mix of affordable, social rented and shared ownership dwellings, as well as first homes. Gleeson Land promoted the development of Kennel Lane, which was owned by the same landowners. Work has recently started following planning permission in December 2022, only 2 years after the grant of outline planning permission. Given the interest already received, a start on site should be achievable by 2026. As detailed within the Comprehensive Committee report, the proposed development constitutes appropriate development of grey belt land and complies with golden rules of the NPPF, which applies to the applications as well as local plans. Members are requested to follow your officer's recommendation and resolve to grant permission subject to conditions and legal agreement. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Will. Now we've had all our speakers, and I have let you go over so you had your say, because sometimes it's very awkward that you have something to say and you can't say it. I'm now going to open it up to members, okay? Any members want to comment on this? Councillor Emma Callaghan.
Hello, Chair, thank you for that. I'd just like the opportunity to request some fact-checking on some of the points raised by public speakers, especially regarding the process. So I want to defer to the Executive Director of Partnerships and Growth, previously Assistant Director of Planning, who's got decades of planning experience, on whether an application like this can go ahead in conjunction with the development of a local plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Have I any more people that wish to speak on this before we go into the vote? Kevin?
This point set out actually in the MPPF, and it was continued in the December version. It's at paragraph 51, and this basically deals with determining of planning applications, and it deals with it says refusal of planning permission on the grounds of prematurity will seldom be justified where a draft plan has yet to be submitted for examination before the end of the local and in the case of neighbourhood plans before the end of the local planning authority's publicity period on the draft plan. Where planning permission is refused on grounds of prematurity, the local authority will need to indicate clearly how granting planning permission for the development concerned would prejudice the outcome of the plan-making process. But bearing in mind that in terms of decision making, this point was used during the appeal on the other matters, the other appeals which the council was unsuccessful on, and what is the primary determination is the fact that we have not got the 5-year housing land supply, and that takes a significant weight in terms of the decision making. So I would say that we haven't got the ability to argue that prematurity is acceptable in this case.
Councillor Alex.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a few things on this one really. Yeah, I mean, as the Executive Director said, the 5-year land supply is a really important issue here. We are I think 1.88 years at the moment, which is nowhere near where this council is able to or should be. As it said several times in the report, as we've all been speaking about all night, you know, this is grey belt land. Whether we like the changes or not, they are the changes now. They are the legislation. We're a quasi-judicial committee here. We have to obey by the law, and it is the law. So this is grey belt land. It's an area that was identified in the previous local plan that the Councillor Moore had a big hand in drafting, and before then withdrawing it and putting us back in the even bigger mess that we currently are with not having a single local plan at all. There's strong evidence that it meets all the criteria for the grey belt. There's in the report on page 68 it says that potential to be developed without causing significant adverse landscape and visual effects. So there's little danger of that. The 50% affordable housing is excellent. I commend the developers for bringing that forward. It's just what we need in Billericay and in the borough in general. I'm very disappointed that the Essex County Council didn't request extra education funding for this project. It is needed in Billericay, and all I can say to that is thank God that fingers crossed Essex County Council won't exist in a few years, and this borough will be able to bring forward the legislation that's needed to keep developers on their toes. So yeah, in general, the application is on grey belt. If this was to be rejected and goes to appeal, we all know that there's very little chance of it being overturned, and all that would do is cost this council hundreds of thousands of pounds that the members of the public pay their council tax to do. So yeah, it's a very difficult situation. Nobody likes building on Greenland, but it is legally the only option.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin Blake.
I seem to remember the same comment when Basildon, the hospital area, was being developed, although that wasn't even classed as green belt, but you were totally opposed to that, or your administration were totally opposed to that. Some people actually live on the area now, but that wasn't in green belt, but you opposed that. Now we've got this being green belt in Billericay, and it's all suddenly okay. I always struggle with the word, always have done, every time I've been on planning, struggle with the words affordable housing. What's affordable for someone is not affordable for others. I've always struggled with that personally anyhow. Cycle paths, really, I'm a bit concerned what I've heard tonight, that if you can't get two lorries to go down either side, they could hit each other. I think that needs clarification for one. That's a major concern as far as I'm concerned. And these cycle paths go somewhere and then stop. When we're going to see the rest of it? They want the cycle paths go everywhere. So I don't necessarily agree with that. The healthcare. 124,000 and then 42,000. Healthcare, when we're just closing an healthcare situation over in Bursted already. So what the actual money's going to do? It's not going to go anywhere at all, is it, actually in that area? So that's a concern. And I actually think one of the reasons why there are so many, we're not hitting our 5-year target, is to the land banking. It's as simple as that. And our government, that we're now in power, failed on that. So I'm not going to pay the point. And your government are failing on that. When you get a planning permission come through, it should be quite clear that comes off your land supply there and then. Because they could, a developer, for example, not this developer, just saying a developer, could buy every bit of green belt in borough, put applications in on every one of them, build nothing, and every time it comes to committee, we would have to say we haven't got our 5-year supply because they're not being built. That's a ridiculous position that we've been in. I think, to be honest with you, I'm struggling with this, the golden rules, and I don't think I'm the only one struggling with those golden rules. I think we're 15 days into a new legislation when this planning application already gone out, and I think the very least that we should is postpone the meeting, adjourn the meeting until we got a bit more evidence to come back. So we as officers and members, because I say it is new to officers as well, so it's being fair to officers, being fair to members, and being fair to the members of the public. That we defer this so we get more clarification on some of the issues that have been raised tonight. So I will put forward a proposal that we defer this application till we have more knowledge of the new regulations that are in place.
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of fact-checking, once again, I'd like to address Councillor Blake's comment about the Labour administration previously voting against the Dry Street development around the hospital. That was on Greenbelt. When the truth is, the Labour administration never opposed the Dry Street development for house building. They opposed Carol Morris signing off the planning application behind closed doors and without a proper report and scrutiny. So, in the interest of fact-checking, which in this meeting doesn't seem to be an interest to many people, we need to keep it straight. And I must say as well, Councillor Schrader's letter saying that by sleight of hand, the definitions of Greenbelt have been changed. By sleight of hand meaning a stonking majority that the government got back in July to end decades of Tory inaction around house building and legislation that happens every single day in Westminster. So I'm just saying that everybody's bringing in this very inflammatory language, sleight of hand, people lying, people going back on the truth. It's all contributing to a loss of fact, and this is a planning committee, and we're quasi-judicial, and we deal in facts only.
Can I ask you to be quiet, please? Members need to speak, we've listened to you, and we need to listen to the members. I think it's Councillor Myers.
Thank you, because so you can hear me. Thank you, everyone. I would like to formally second Councillor Blake's proposal for a deferment for a few reasons that have come up tonight, and also for others. The planning officer as well spoke about when Councillor Blake was asking about the golden rules. I wasn't quite sure what they were about either, but he nipped the bud there by asking the question. The planning officer said that she wasn't trying to get her head around it as well, saying from 15 working days ago. I think there are issues here about the tests on what is considered to be very good quality and good quality agricultural land, grade 2, grade 3 predominantly, and some grade 3B. I think with a site like this that's open greenbelt, not previously developed land, as I would normally call greybelt sites, I have approved things on, or sorry, not approved, but voted for things on greenbelt that have been previously developed, such as the site on 200 London Road in Wickford. I have voted for that. But I think with something like this, as open greenbelt with a public right-of-way where you can see acres and hectares of open field. Basildon generally is known as a political bellwether. With changes to greenbelt policy and the new golden rules, why should we be the planning bellwether on something that is clearly open land? In my opinion, we should get some more clarification, more guidance on these MPPF paragraphs, because there is normally chunks and chunks of supplementary guidance and documentation on all of the policy numbers and how you interpret them and how the government wants you to interpret them, rather than just the text that they are themselves, such as updates to the planning practice guidance and other ancillary documents. The local plan consultation exercise ends on the 12th of January, which is at the end of this week. The site's comments, it is included in the proposed draft of a local plan. The site's comments made should be taken into account before any decision on the draft local plan has been made, whether or not this land is going to be suitable for development in the future. So based on those grounds, I think we should be deferring this for more information.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. I think Hadra would like to speak on this, please.
Can I just pick up one point which is very key to this, and it's a key to your discussions around grey belt. If you turn to paragraph 5.1.59, that relates to harm to the green belt. We're aware of the challenges that may have been brought tonight in terms of the definition of green belt, and what that paragraph says. It says, whilst officers consider that the proposed development would utilise green belt, and that other tests of the MPPF and that the other tests of the MPPF paragraph 155 and those of 156 and 159 are met, leading to a recommendation to approve. It may be that members take a different view about the Greenbelt judgment, and it is for that reason that the harm to the Greenbelt versus other considerations, very special circumstances, are addressed in section 5.19 of this report. So we have given members the opportunity to disregard the green belt and then do a proper weighted, which is why the case officer set out for you the balance for you to make that balanced decision based on those matters within the green belt. So both issues relating to grey belt and then also the general green belt, very special circumstances, have been addressed in this report. So members have got all information available in this report to make a balanced decision with regard to either grey belt or green belt, or in this case, both.
Thank you, Christine. I think we have another speaker, Councillor Matt Baker. Yeah, okay. We have got to take a vote on this, obviously. Can you actually tell me what we're going to vote on?
It's whether
on the defer.
So Councillor Blake and seconded by Councillor Myers have asked to defer the item
Yes.
for further information with regard to grey belt.
Yes. So I think Councillor Myers, you've asked us to defer this application. No, you did, Councillor Blake. Yes, of course, yes. So that was to do with deferring this on the grey belt. Is that? Well, tell me what you want, Councillor Blake.
Just the overall, well, first of all, I'll start again. I apologise for that. Yeah, where I'm coming from, I don't think members, officers or members of the public are quite clear enough about things like the golden rule or the new legislation that's been brought in whilst this application has been in process. And I just feel that we need more clarification on that so that we can make a more detailed view when it comes back.
Okay.
Oops. So can I speak in relation to obviously the case officer's comments with the fact that we've had a very short period of time to understand this, but we understand it completely. We're professionals in our job, we understand it completely. And the fact that and also the report has been on two occasions has actually been, we've passed this to check the fact that we have made the correct assessment and the report is correct. It has been through two separate barristers to make sure that the report is actually lawfully correct, and we have utilised the test set out in the MPPF correctly in terms of our decision making, and that is why the case officer went through the process that I've already read out to you, that we went through the grey belt process, and then if you were not happy with that process, we then went through the normal green belt test, which you are all used to dealing with, and you've all been trained significantly on. So that's why the paragraph was put in there, and we then went into quite the normal amount of detail to give you the correct approach to deal with this application.
Yeah, are you clear on that?
I heard what was said,
Yes. And you have a seconder, which is Councillor Myers. So I'm going to put it to the vote now. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Yes. First of all, any abstentions? No? Okay. No. Yes. Councillor Callaghan.
May I just put it on record that because I voted against a motion to delay a decision, which I've fully read upon and trust the officers that they understand the legislation around planning, that the members of the public gallery have issued an accusation that I'm a traitor, and I would just say that's really unhelpful and is completely indicative of where politics is today. I'm sitting here as a committee member looking at as an application, and I've just got to say that the language that's been used is very dangerous.
I'm not aware that any member of the public called Emma Callaghan a traitor. Does anyone hear anyone say Emma Callaghan's a traitor? No, I don't think so.
We have voted now on this to defer, and we've rejected it. So we won't have any politics brought into this, because this is unfair. No.
It's process.
Yes, I know, because of the defer. But we don't want politics brought into it, names of people. This is a planning application that we will vote on tonight. Okay? Anybody else like to speak? Chris, would you like to speak?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask one thing, if I could. I'm not sure if I heard it correctly. I think it was from Vanessa Carter, where she said something about a 100-metre boundary, and in the plan it was stated as 15 metres. Is there? It was
Christine.
There is because there is no because the council no longer has an adopted local plan, the planning process for this relates to what's put in front of the council, and we make those decisions based on the application that's placed in front of the council and the information set out in the NPPF and those relevant policies in our very old local plan that are still available. There's no way in any of that it mentions 100 metres, so I'm unsure where that came from. And if that had been the fact, it would have been mentioned in the report. So there is no requirement in terms of what's in front of us, in terms of no policy requirement for that to happen, and therefore the decisions would not be made on that basis.
Is that okay? Is there any other points now, before I had my say? No? Okay. I've got to say, last night, all councillors had a briefing, and we did have Essex County Council Mark Lawrence here, which was able to ask him several questions about the road, because I have a problem with the road as well. I'm a user of the road because we take our grandchildren to school. We have to go past Sun Corner. And I do agree, I believe it was Danny Ryan that actually said what a mismatch of traffic it is. It's awful. And I was really opposed to anything to do with the infrastructure. Because years ago, I think it possibly might have been 25 years ago, we had traffic flow from each direction. So you would have been able to come from the roundabout, go up Langdon Road, but now we have to go all round past Sun Corner. But speaking to Mark Lawrence last night, he did decide that he would look at several different things to do with the road that would help us. Now, I have a problem with the road, but I can't see that I've got any problem with the planning application. Now, you know, I don't want to be a hypocrite because I live off Dunton Road, and that was used. 3 different applications here, and I spoke against Green Belt. It was probably about a year ago, 18 months ago. And of course, now, it was a different plan now. We have the golden rules, which are completely different. So, yes, they are. I know people are shaking their head. We have to abide by what we're being told to, which is legal and which is law, I believe. So we have to take all those things into consideration. Now, we have 2 Essex County councillors, which I think is Councillor Richard Moore, Councillor Tony Headley, as well, that could put this about the infrastructure to Essex County Council. We're lucky if we ever get them to come to one of our committee meetings. They just don't like to come. But last night we had a good 30 minutes with Mark Lawrence to ask him the questions that I think you had, Councillor Baker, didn't you? I had, and we all had various questions on it. About the Quilters, the school crossing. My grandchildren go there. Lots of my family asked me, I don't want to move out of the area, I don't want to rent, I want to buy houses. So we need affordable houses. We're all comfy in our own houses, and this is why I didn't like the London Road application, because it was down the road from me. So of course I wanted to vote against it. I was being greedy. I've got my house, and I don't care about anybody. We've got 3,000 odd people on our housing waiting list with no chance of housing them. And we really do need to give them our, you know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation. You know, they can't live with mum and dad forever. And I feel really bad about this, but the application, which was Dunton Road where I live, was on Green Belt as well. It was Green Belt land. It was a farmer's field. There was no grey belt at all on that one. So, of course, I was against it. But the rules, I don't think people get the idea of it now. Councillor Blake was saying to me, You know, the golden rules, I don't understand them. If we're on planning, we have the obligation to know those rules. We can ask, we've all got a mouth in a head that we can ask, what are these golden rules? Before this comes to the planning committee. And parental choice has a lot to do with it as well. Parental choice is, which comes from Essex County Council, that is parents choose where their children go to school. And it's quite commonly known that children in Basildon want to go to Billericay. Children in Billericay want to go to Brentwood or Chelmsford. It's what they do. And this what is causing the problem on the roads. Now, in my area, people said to me, I've read all your applications. I'd read them all. And people said to me, well, you know, I think you might have a problem. But in my area, it was mentioned tonight, we have 1,000 houses being built on Redrow site. You know, we didn't get a chance for people to come along and talk to it. It was signed off by the previous administration. So I do have a problem with that. You know, we're giving everybody a fair play, but I have a very heavy heart because I have a doctor's surgery that won't exist anymore. You know, I have things like that as well. So I'm taking all into the consideration we need houses in our area. And I'm saying we can't be greedy. You know, no one likes change, but unfortunately it has to come. Okay? So with a very heavy heart I am tonight, because I do think the infrastructure's not there. But Mark Lawrence from County has told me he's going to make changes. So it's up to us to keep on about the changes. I've had my say now, and I think you wanted to speak, Councillor Baker.
I did share very briefly, just to kind of echo those points. As you said, we had Essex Highways at the meeting, a technical briefing yesterday, and we have no choice in a quasi-judicial process but to accept their judgments. I am bound to say on a fact-checking basis that narrowing a road from 6.2 metres wide to 5.5 metres wide does not affect the capacity of the road in terms of the number of vehicles that can pass up and down it. And I'm also bound to say, sorry to fact-check Councillor Baggett's observation, but if a road's 5.5 metres wide and a council truck is 2.5 metres wide, two of them can pass quite safely. So just to address that point. Also, as you mentioned, we're bound by Essex County Council. Councillor Moore is a councillor. He lives on Langdon Road, as I understand it. So I'm not sure if you mentioned that or not. But anyway, obviously he's at liberty to, if he doesn't like the arrangements, to perhaps try and address them with Essex County Council direct.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say, in terms of the application itself, the positives of this application are being severely overlooked. You know, we have 250 homes, 50% of which are going to be affordable to people all across our borough who have only just ever dreamed of living in a town like Billericay. I have a chance now to afford it. You know, we've got all this infrastructure investment, 1.3 million, I think it totaled up to, a promise to review school places and the need for the school places as we go along. More green spaces. I think right at the top of the meeting, the public right-of-way path is now going to be, not only is that area going to be free for you to use, you're going to have almost 8 hectares of green space around the development, which is currently private land. And I'd just say this is a really positive thing for people who love to live near their parents when they have children. It's people who, you know, I know Councillor Blake, you know, pointed in my direction earlier about where I live. Yes, I live on a development. I wouldn't have been able to have that house, you know, if it wasn't for the fact it was built. I have 2 beautiful babies. I've got amazing memories in that house. And I would just say that everybody on the back row, you know, can you remember the first day that you brought your babies home from hospital? Can you remember the first day you sent them off to school? Can you remember the worst day of work you ever had and how relieved you felt when you got home through your front door? And I would just say, think of the thousands of people in our borough living in mouldy B&Bs right now with all their children in the same room as them, desperate for homes, desperate for housing, as well as those who would jump at the chance of living in Billericay. This is a wonderful application. It's come through. It's addressing all the issues and concerns. It's on a parcel of a greenbelt patch of land. It doesn't touch the ancient woodlands. It's a nice, well-contained, sustainable development, and we should be lauding its merits and not trying to pick fault because of people's personal preferences. Thank you.
Well, I would like to say the one thing that I think is amiss on all these big applications is an attendance by Essex County Council of highways. I think there's not much we can all agree on this one, but certainly I think that is a case that I think we was honoured, I suppose, to actually have them there yesterday. That was after a few words, but I do think it's relevant that they should be here, and I generally do, and I know. Whether when we was in administration and when you're in there, I do know that you are pushing for that all the time. So just want to make that quite clear that that's on that point. I do totally agree with you.
I must say that we do need our county councillors here. You know, to say to highways, perhaps that's why we might need a unitary authority, because we know our own area, because we never get anybody here from highways, and they should be here, because last night I was able to answer a lot of questions. He was able to answer a lot of questions for me, because I have a problem with the infrastructure. But he has promised me, and he's promised people, that we can go to him when we have a problem like this, but we need him here so that the members of the public can hear what they've got to say. It's all right writing it down, but you don't always get it this way. Well, with a heavy heart anyway, because I like to protect the green belt, but unfortunately, I'm not protecting the green belt where I live, because I've got 200 houses going in the spitting distance of where I live. I don't like it, and I came along to one of these committees and I spoke my honest truth. I'm not being called a hypocrite. But now we've got different rules in position. And now we've got to obey the rules. That's the law. And that's all I'm going to say. And I don't think anybody else has now. So I'm going to read this planning application to you, which is a recommendation that planning application number 2400762 /out be granted outline planning permission, subject to the calling powers being exercised by the Secretary of State, the completion of a 106 agreement to secure 50% affordable housing on site, together with financial contributions toward healthcare improvement, employment and skills, sustainable transport, open space, culture, play and sports provision, maintenance and monitoring of the approved biodiversity game plan for a period of 30 years, monitoring fees, payment of the local planning authorities, professional and legal fees associated with the completion of the 106 agreement as set out in section 5.18 and subject to the conditions set out at the end of the report, with any amendments.
An additional condition relating to the bollard.
Yes, and regarding the condition about the bollards for the emergency entrance might be necessary up to the issues of the decision notice. I want to go into the vote now. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Thank you. No abstentions, so the permission is granted, the outline permission. Thank you. We're going to adjourn for 10 minutes now. Is that all right?
It's fine, yeah.
They didn't go nuts, did they? No. It was good. You managed. No, I thought they were going to go crazy, but I wasn't going to have none of it anyway. it brings everyone's back now. We can, we've all had a break. We can go on to item 5, okay, which is full change of use to B2, B8 and or mix of B2 for warehouses in 1 to 2 and 3 and factory at East Coffin Firm or something Installation UK Limited, Harvey Road, Burnt Mills, Industrial Estate, Basildon, Essex. And I think that's Thomas. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Just share my screen. Thank you, Chair. So the application site relates to a site owned by Ecotherm Insulation in the Burnt Mills Industrial Estate area in Basildon. The application is before the committee as it is a major application due to the site area exceeding 1 hectare. The site comprises 3 warehouse buildings and a factory, and the application seeks permission for a change of use to use class B2, which is general industry, B8 storage and distribution, and or a mix of the use classes B2, B8 for the 3 warehouse buildings and the factory. There are currently B2 and B8 uses on the site, and therefore there are no objections in principle. This just shows an aerial view of the site. And then this is inside some of the buildings that are part of this application. And so this plan shows the existing site plan for the buildings. No changes are proposed to the size, design or layout of the existing buildings, and no changes are proposed to the existing access and the parking arrangements which serve the site. An additional condition has been secured to ensure there will be no storage, sorting or processing of waste on the site following a technical briefing last night. And in conclusion, the application is recommended to members for approval, subject to the conditions identified at the end of the officer report on page 202, along with the additional condition which is set out on the update sheet. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got any clarifications on from anyone? No? No. Sorry, speaker is not going to speak anymore, so we can go into question time with the people, with the members. Any questions on this? No? Right. We can go into the recommendation then, which is that planning application 24008-654 be approved subject to the conditions set out in section 8.0, is that? Oh yes, yes. Of this report with any amendments that might be necessary, and that the only one that we've seen here is to do with waste use, which is condition 3. None of the units hereby permitted shall be used for the storage, sorting of processing of waste. This should not preclude the storage and sorting of waste, which is an auxiliary byproduct of the manufacturing process hereby approved. Reasons to accord the submitted scheme, and because of the site is not considered suitable for the storage. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous, thank you. That is granted. So we will now go on to... on to item 6, which is 240082, variation to conditions 2, approved plans of application 22016674 to accommodate new boundary lines from the topographical survey, repositioning of the proposed dwelling and changes in the size and internal appearance of the proposed dwelling on the land adjacent to 134 Mount Nessing Road. And I believe that is Ralph Mallon.
It's okay. I think I've got the grip of it now.
If you click on Teams. That's right. I think we'll have to. Just use the meeting chat there.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Sorry about all that. Technical hitches. Good afternoon, good evening, members. Good evening, members of the public, ladies and gentlemen. As the Chair has explained, this is a variation to an existing planning permission to vary condition 2, which is the approved plans for previously approved development 22/01667/full, which was for a detached 2-storey, 4-bedroom dwelling, which was approved by this committee on the 6th of July 2023. Let's see. This is the application site here, and the application site is outlined in red. And as you can see, the dwellings to the south of the application site are orientated towards Mount Nessing Road, whereas the dwellings to the north in Charity Farm Chase actually back onto Mount Nessing Road. As I say, this is an approved development, and prior to the actual development taking place, development has started at the site, but it's been halted pending the outcome of this application. But pending the development, before the site was developed, detailed surveys were carried out by the applicant, and they established that actually the location plan, which was submitted with the original application site, wasn't correct in that it differed from the ordnance survey plan on which it had been based, because the fences had been erected and the site was not as it should be shown. And if you look at this plan here, the lines in red show the scheme which is up to date and shows the true extent of the application site, whereas the lines in blue show the previously approved scheme. As a result of that, and also because there is a pipe running in front of the site, it's meant that there's been some minor modifications to the footprint and to the height of the building. It's been moved back slightly on site, and it's been moved slightly over from number 17 to the right. And as well as that, there are a number, this is the application, this is an aerial view here, and we can see the application site is, sorry, it's just this area here, with number 34 for Mount Nessing Road here, and number 17 there. These are the proposed elevational changes, and as you can see, they're very similar to what was previously approved, and they're quite in character with the road. Now, an issue that has arisen is that there's been some concern that there might have been an access to Chantry Close over this site at some point, and that may well have been the case, but there's no actual right-of-way in place at the site. And it would seem that whatever the cut-through that did exist there has been incorporated into houses on Charity Farm Chase. So, in summary, it's what's proposed here. It's to change the position of the approved house, make some minor elevations to its appearance, and also, importantly, the parking area at the front of the site is now fully enclosed within the application site as revised. This is just the key issues. The actual precise distances are set out in the report at paras 5.2 to 5.6. And highways access and private amenity space remain satisfactory as before. The rear garden area is still pretty generous. And it's worth noting in the scheme that the rear line of the house hasn't changed, nor has its southern side. The northern side has been moved in slightly, and it's been set back further from Mount Nessing Road. In terms of the planning balance, the application site boundaries have now been corrected. The impact on visual and residential amenities of the areas are unaffected in comparison to the approved development, and it's not considered that any negative considerations arise from this correction to the approved scheme. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ralph. Any clarifications on this, please? Councillor Myers.
Thank you. Could we go back to the slide where it shows the new site boundaries?
Yes.
I'm just interested. Which one is the property?
Which one is the correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blue or
yeah, it's the red. It's the red one here.
Right. Okay. So you've got so.
Whereas originally it was shown as being the blue one.
So I'm just going to get up to have a bit of a closer look, if I may. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Thank you. That was my question. Sorry.
Okay.
No more questions? No clarifications? Okay. So we'll go straight on to calling Councillor Richard Moore. Bursted Ward, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll repeat it for sake of consistency. I'm the Bursted Ward Borough Councillor, and the application site is in the Bursted Ward, and I'm speaking on behalf of my residents. I'd like to remind the committee that in October 2020, this council approved a planning application to erect a detached 4-bedroom dwelling house with attached garage on land next to 134 Mount Nessing Road. 7 months after this plan was approved, we had a new application for a much larger 4-bedroom detached house with rooms in the roof. This was refused in May 2021. A further application with a revised scheme was then made, which was refused in December 2021. The applicant appealed this application, and the appeal was dismissed by the planning inspector. Finally, a further yet revised scheme was received and went before the planning committee in July 2023 and was approved. Tonight we are talking about a variation of Condition 2 approved drawings of that application to accommodate new boundary lines, repositioning of the proposed dwelling, and change in the size and external appearance of the proposed dwelling. There is a further variation that after more than 3 years, the applicant has found discrepancies with the Ordnance Survey site plan, along with, at this late stage, a positioning issue of the Essex and Suffolk water main. The variations requested are the building has been sited further from Mount Nessing Road due to the Essex and Suffolk water pipe. The relationship with the northern boundary, shared with number 17 Charity Farm Chase, has been revised to reflect the current on-site physical boundary fence, and then the appearance amendments including floor area footprint revisions, height reduction, site repositioned, the distance from Mount Nessing Road amended, and the distance to the northern boundary with 17 Charity Farm Chase reduced from 2.8 metres to 1.5. In summary, this further variation also seeks to normalise several discrepancies with the OS plan and the positioning of the Essex and Suffolk water main, which is a surprise because this could have been established in 2020. After all, the water main hasn't moved during the last 4 years. However, the applicant has used this variation of approved plans to reposition and change the appearance once again of the proposed dwelling. Madam Chairman, the applicant has spent the last 4 years from the initial planning application for a detached 4-bedroom dwelling house in Mount Nessing Road in 2020, which was approved, and constantly adjusting plans to get a bigger and better house on this plot of land. This has proved very stressful and worrying to residents over the period of time. And here we are having a further application that was approved in July 2023, only to discover discrepancies with the Ordnance Survey plan and the positioning of the water main. And the applicant used this as an opportunity to change once again the size and external appearance of the proposed dwelling so that the building is substantially different to that which was approved by the Planning Committee in July 2023. Clearly, the applicant wanted a larger house in the first place, but following the approval of their original application in 2020, an application was made for an even larger house, which was refused, then appealed, and the appeal failed. Then the applicant came back with a further scheme, which was finally approved in 2023. Frankly, Madam Chairman, local residents are tired of the manipulation of the planning system to get a bigger house than originally approved by the Planning Committee in 2020. If the committee is minded to approve this so-called variation, is there some way that can be found that after 4 years, this is the end of the road for applications and variations for this application site, so neighbours in the area have some certainty of the future? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. We have Hunter Thompson attending remotely.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll start. Madam Chair, committee members, basically what we're looking at today, I'm questioning, and I don't know, I'm not a property expert, but Section 73, using it as an application variation, seems to apply in most districts when it's dealing with changes within the existing approval. Reciting a property, I'm questioning how this can possibly be undertaken in this form without a full understanding of a light survey to 17 Charity Farm. So my main objections are not to do with variation in the height of the build, the front line of the property, because they are within the existing approval or that's been approved. I would point out that the 1.3 metre reduction to the north boundary is material.
I don't see how it can be classified as non-material, given that the distance is 5 metres. That hasn't changed. This new issue that they've introduced, boundary realignment, which hasn't been verified. We have purchased our property, 17 Charity Farm purchased additional land from the original owner, developer, who the current applicant bought the property from. He agreed those boundary lines. So that hasn't been substantiated in any shape or form. And I don't see it should be considered, because the true fact is 17 Charity Farm Chase hasn't moved its site. The actual building in question, the Lions Charity Farm Chase, is a glass habitable room that would look directly onto any movement towards this property. I remind the committee that they refused a previous application that Councillor Moore referenced when it was at 1.6, and now suddenly it's not material at 1.5. This went to the Bristol Inspectorate, who decided that it would have been a severe loss on loss of sight and loss of light, and privacy. So I'm astounded that this has been put through in this form. So to summarise, I object to the using section 73, and I want clarification if possible from the members whether they agree that this is appropriate, because without a loss of light survey, a light survey, how can you understand the impact? We have sent pictures of the latest development that has assumed that they will get the 1.5 metres, no understanding of why they started that process. This is causing so much problems and anxiousness within the household. And I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Moore that this must be the final application, subject to them providing a full, detailed report on the impact of moving by 1.3 metres to the north boundary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I think we have Jane Thompson now, please.
Hello. Dear Chair and committee members, I live at 17 Grove Road, the property to the rear of the proposed dwelling, and I'd like to explain why I'm objecting to these current plans to reposition the dwelling closer to 17 Charity Farm Chase. Firstly, the impact on neighbours. The issue of the easement pipe cannot be relevant as to why the approved plan should be amended to reposition the dwelling closer to Charity Farm. The building restriction and measurements to the front of the land have always been known to the applicants from when they first purchased the land, yet they have already built the foundations in the position that they are now seeking the approval for. This does not justify the negative impact of positioning the dwelling only 5 metres from Charity Farm. The flank wall of Charity Farm is not a side wall without windows, but it's a south-facing habitable room with patio doors facing out towards the proposed dwelling. To build a dwelling so close it would block light into the primary window and restrict the quality of light that is currently provided. I do not understand, and we are concerned that the changes have been recommended without a daylight and sunlight assessment report, and that would clearly identify the loss of light. The planning statement presented by Mundy and Kremer states there being a discrepancy to the north boundary measurements, but yet this has to be proven and it's irrelevant to the plans being approved. It all seems very smoke and mirrors. The impact upon the character of the area. To reposition the dwelling on what is already very overdevelopment would have further detrimental impact and would be unduly intrusive, and it would not be consistent with the surrounding residential dwellings and have a negative impact on the character of the area. I am sure you can appreciate the toll on our well-being from the worry and the The constant uncertainty and anxiety we have experienced from constant applications since 2020 to build without seeking to respect the position and living conditions in our home. Further distress has been caused to us by the applicants building the foundations to the development without first submitting plans to be approved. It's my understanding that building control have stopped further work on the site until a decision is made. As residents of Basildon Council, we should feel safe and free to enjoy a home and experience well-being in our own home. We do appreciate that the Planning Office report has put in certain conditions with the aim to safeguard us from any future and further detrimental impact. I kindly ask the Planning Committee to consider the photographs I have sent. I hope you have them, that evidence the overdominance and detriment impact it would have, and I urge the committee to refuse the repositioning of the dwelling. Here is, if you haven't seen it, I don't know if you have these. Please consider how you would feel should a dwelling be built 5 metres from your lounge patio windows, a room that you have enjoyed since 2011. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane Thompson. I have Barry Brooks in person. Would you like to come forward? And press the red button.
There we go. Thank you. Good evening. I'm not going to repeat what's been said by my neighbours and Councillor Moore. I've been there for 27 years. I was the first person who bought that house and went through the iterations of this planning process with the previous owners of this. So we've gone through this time and time again. What's clear recently is that the new developers have gone on site. They've went through this process for the last 4 or 5 years. We've gone back, and as everyone said, it was put in, sent back, too big. To my property, I'm on the border at 17 Charity Farm Chase, as the picture was tried to show, and I hope you can see it, is that basically it's getting closer and closer to my house. The mythical topography, whatever they take survey, which I don't know if you have seen, you have. Yeah, okay, but you've not validated it, no? Okay, that's a question. Sorry, perhaps I shouldn't ask a question. But obviously that's not been validated by anybody other than the people that want to build the property. As I said, I don't want to repeat all what's gone on here. It's been going on for years and years. We need to put it to bed. But the Essex and Suffolk waterboard at the front, that's always been there. This to move it and then decide to go, okay, because of that, we can now make it wider, seems ridiculous. And now I've got that there. And my fence was put in with the owners of the time who had the property there. We sat there, we measured it out, and we put it into place. If it is right, that's a different discussion. It's still only 5 metres from my door, my back door, and looking into my house. It's overbearing. I didn't even agree with the last thing you approved, if I'm honest. I still think it was too big. However, I can't do anything about that. But changing this now and just going on and building without the approval and building the footings, is that the right way to do things? And would we have seen this if I didn't raise the question with you guys about this? Would they have had to come back, or would they just carried on and built what they was going to do? So without repeating all the different pieces there, it's in the wrong place, it's too big, and it's now infringing on my property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Would Manny Ulak come forward, please?
Oh, sorry. Still.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today. My name is Manny Olak, and I am going to be discussing the reasons why I think this application should be approved. As Ralph has mentioned, the building works only started following its approval. This was around the same time that our Section 73 application was submitted. We have partially started foundations on the builder's recommendations to do so in the summer, and this is only within the ground so far. Our reasons for submitting a Section 73 application are amendments to the appearance to make it more in keeping with other houses on Mount Nessing Road, minor adjustments to site positioning due to the fence being positioned incorrectly. We had a topographical, there was a discrepancy with the topographical survey that we had, and also the deeds, and it seems like the fence has come into our land initially when put up, from what we could make out with working with the architects and the topographical, but that's fine. The reduction to the dwelling floor area, so we're trying to reduce the size of the house. Reduction to the height, so we're reducing the size of the height of the building. And as you can see, these are all amendments that are minor, and this is a sole purpose of a Section 73 application. In summary, the proposed scheme meets all guidelines, from the garden exceeding well over 100 square metres. We did carry out a right to light report when the house was at a bigger stage, and that was not now included, but it was confirmed that there was no material impact. This is a detached house with more than the minimum distance to boundaries as per planning policy. I'd like to reiterate, we have reduced the mass, scale, bulk and height of this dwelling to what was originally approved. We just spoke a lot about the greenbelt just now, and this is a brownfield site that complies with planning policy. And on that basis, I respect members' support the officer's recommendation to approve application. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have Jag, please?
Good evening. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. So my name is Jag, and I'm a mother of 2 young infant boys, which, to answer some questions here, is why we might have taken a bit of time to start the build. So the house in subject is our family house. My children go to Quilter School, they're in catchment. The sooner we can build this house, the sooner we can move on with our lives. We're currently living in a 2-bed apartment. We sat here over a year ago with the committee and we were granted planning. We had an overwhelming positive support and votes from the committee last time. I recall comments from the committee such as, we're not sure why a single dwelling application has ended up in the committee. And if this plan was there when the houses were being built on that road, that it would have been approved without any issues. Our actual neighbour, 134, have not expressed any concerns. In fact, they've helped to encourage to build sooner. The pushbacks seem to be coming from the road behind, which I don't believe our plans actually affect. Those complaintees who bought their houses, planning was always on that plot of land that we brought. In fact, we've actually reduced the size of the plan from what was initially agreed. Even though this is just one dwelling, it is still a positive contribution to the council's housing target. Therefore, I hope the committee will follow the officer's recommendations and support our application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll now open it to clarifications for members, please.
Right. Just two seconds, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Section 73, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I just remind members what Section 73 application is? Because obviously not everybody knows. So what a Section 3 application is, it is amending the conditions attached to a planning permission. That's what it is. and basically it can be used to make material amendments by removing or varying conditions associated with the planning permission. There's no statutory time limit on the degree of there's no statutory limit on the degree of change permissible to conditions under section 73, but the change must relate only to conditions and not to the operative part of the permission. So the conditions that what they're seeking to vary is condition 2. So condition 2 has 2 plans attached to it. One relates to the location plan, which is where obviously the building and the red lines changed, and one relates to the drawing plan. So condition 2 relates to those 2 issues. So that's what you're looking at. So the principle of development's been accepted. So you're not looking at the principle. You're looking at the issue with regard to section 73.
Thank you, Christine. Go back to clarifications. Any members? Alex?
Yeah, it's just a question. Sorry, thank you. It's just a question. So based on that, and it's looking at just condition 2 with the site plans and the plans for the properties that were approved in 2023 and reduction in size from the... Can that condition also be amended to remove permitted development rights for heights and further extensions going forwards based on the site plans that have been given?
Yes, actually, the conditions have been attached, removing permitted development rights for any further alterations to the roof, which would include dormers and roof lights.
Which condition is that, please?
I think it's condition number 11. 10, beg your pardon, 10. Sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me. Yeah, I should say that these conditions have all been carried over from the original planning permission 2 years ago, which is standard with the section 73 variation.
Okay.
It's just quite a long condition with very wording, so yeah, I get it now.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to, say really that, I remember this application from last time it was here, and my views on it hasn't changed much at all, really. This isn't a developer keep bringing it back to try and squeeze out every last penny of an application. This is a young family who are just building a house that's right for them and are going to be moving in and living in it. So yeah, it's I'm sure it's frustrating for them that this is taking so long. All they want to do is move into their home. But yeah, I don't have any problems with the with the application as it is here, the variations, and I hope that it all gets sorted soon and they do get to move in with their family to the home that's right for them.
Yeah, Rob, can you put the that diagram with the red and blue lines back on the screen, please? Because I think I'm hearing 2 totally conflicting stories here. Councillor Moore and the other people are talking about enormous changes, and the couple proposing it are talking about minimal changes. So, can you just talk us through that?
Shares up there. Shares up there. What's up? Great, thank you, Ryan. Okay. Yes, certainly. This is the outline again, and just. Is it possible, Ryan?
Slide screen thing, if you press that, it'll go full screen. Down a bit. Bottom right, but not the zoom.
Just, oh yeah.
that any better? Yeah. The scheme before the committee is in red, and the original scheme is in blue. And you can see that actually the footprint has actually been reduced, and it's been moved further to the south as well, very slightly.
So if I'm reading this correctly, it's no closer to number... Right, so it's no closer to 17 Grove Road as far as I can see there. And it doesn't seem to be any closer to 17 Charity Farm Chase either.
No, it doesn't. No. Yeah, can I just say, Mr. Brooks, I'm going to ask you, which is your address?
17 Charity Farm Chase. It's 1.5 metres closer than it was agreed in your plan. So let's, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we were talking, you're saying it's minimal. It depends on your definition of minimal. That's up to you guys. I'm not saying that. But to say it's nothing is 1.5 metres close.
But this plan says
My interpretation certainly is that it's actually further away from your property compared to the original. It's very slightly further away.
So it can't be 1.5 metres closer and further away, I'm going to say.
The 1.5 metres is the separation distance to the boundary. That's been preserved. The 1.5 metres is the separation distance to the boundary, which was in the original scheme.
1.3 metres to the side. It's the boundary is what's been questioned by the...
Can I ask you to... You've had your chance to speak. I'm sorry, but I can't allow you to speak.
Yeah.
So the blue lines are the lines of the original planning consent, and the red lines are the amendments that are in front of us.
The red lines are the correct boundaries, legal boundaries of the site. Following the boundaries, the topographical boundaries. It's clear that the OS, the original site as shown on the OS, has been changed in the past. Because I think number 17 acquired acquired part of the site at some stage.
Sorry, my
Certainly, following the surveys, the red lines now show the extent of the application site.
So, if I'm reading this correctly, Ralph, obviously 17 Charity Farm Chase and 17 Grove Road haven't moved, correct? So, if this...
Excuse me, I think you need to understand that they're trying to move it nearer to 17 Charity Farm Chase.
Can you cut that person out? I'm in the middle of a conversation. Okay, thank you. Sorry. So the existing house...
The outline of the approval is shown in blue, and the outline of the proposed variation is shown in red. So it is slightly further from number 17.
So it's no closer to 17 Grove Road, and it's further away from 17 Charity Farm Chase. Is that correct?
17 Charity Farm Chase, yes. It is.
That's correct, is it, Christine? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Blake.
What I'm confused about, listening to the gentleman that spoke, why would a gentleman come to the planning committee to complain about a development that's actually going to be further away from what it was originally? So that's what I'm being absolutely honest with you. I'm totally confused. I can't see how anybody would come to a planning committee to oppose a development which is actually going to be decreased to his property. That doesn't seem logical. So I won't lie to you. I am absolutely confused with that. Now, I know a little bit about planning. I'm absolutely confused, and I don't. If everybody's honest, I don't think I'm the only one. Can we ask? Can we clarify that is that? Well, you can't ask him to speak again. That's the annoying thing. You can't ask him to speak again. But I just can't see how anybody would come to a planning committee to oppose something which is actually to their benefit. It doesn't make logic. There's no logic there at all.
I wanted to ask a question as well. The planning approval for the footings, is that retrospective? Or do they need planning for that?
This is the current application. Beg your pardon, sorry. The current application is for a variation to approve the footings as they have been laid. Yeah.
No problem with that.
If the committee were to grant planning permission, yes, that as the house foundations have been laid, they would then be approved. Yes.
Okay. But we've just got a problem with the space between the buildings, haven't we?
Yeah, and I heard what it is retrospective.
It is retrospective, yes, in terms. Yeah. Yeah.
Retrospective.
Mm-hmm. But I would say it is at a very early stage. It's just at foundation stage. Yeah. I would also, sorry, I would also make the point that there is a valid planning permission at the site. Yeah, whatever the precise boundaries are, there is the original planning permission remains.
From looking at the original, I've got the original plan up here. From the original plan, the development with the original boundary in blue, the proposed development was 2.8 metres to that boundary. So where the dwelling, so based on the blue line, the building would have. So if you measure from the top corner of the building to what was the blue line then, that was 2.8 metres, and you're now saying that gap between the boundary of the building and the new red line boundary and the dwelling house is now 1.5 metres.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
The boundary.
So
this is the boundary to the new boundary is 1.5.
So the boundaries moved towards the property. It's basically just reduced. So nothing.
So number 17's got more.
So number 17's got its land back, and therefore technically, as the man says, it has moved the house nearer to his boundary, but only because they've moved the boundary to make it nearer to the boundary. So that's what I mean. That's looking at the two. Looking at the two. I mean, I've got the approval in front of me.
Yeah. Can we have one meeting, please? Sorry.
Sorry.
Can we have one meeting? Otherwise, I'll have to ask you to leave. I'm sorry, but you've had your chance to speak. Okay.
If you go back to the tests of section 73, provisions relating to statutory consultation, what it says is the fact that the test you have to look at is the fact that there's no limit to what you can seek under section 73, but it must relate to the conditions and not to operative parts of the permission. So the test is the fact that there's no opportunity. You've got original consent in place. That place gave planning permission for a building. The building, subject to some further work, has changed the red line. The red line has moved nearer to the proposed development, and it's moved the building slightly back on the site because of the. I think what happened is that from no building control, they've said that because the sewer was marked on the original planning consent. I think when they were digging the foundations, I reckon the building control said you're too close to the sewer, to the pipe. So they've had to move the building back to account for that. So that's obviously looking at the original planning permission. That's what obviously I'm just surmising there. But so basically, what you have to make the assessment of, there is an in principle planning permission granted for the dwelling house. You have to consider whether the amendments in front of you, and remember there's no limit on those amendments, are acceptable, and it can be a variation of this planning consent, and we've done the relevant we've done the relevant consultations with it, so but that we should have done, so the residents have been given the option, so that's what you have to look at today.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Christine, I think the issue is we don't actually know what we're looking at.
Exactly.
So I think what might help is, where's the fence? Is it the blue line or the red line?
So it would seem that the fence is, so the fence is on the plan you've got in front of you there. That was the approved. So go back to the one before. That, no, go back to the location plan, Ralph.
That one.
So the original application had the line as set out, the blue line. That was your original. So the original application had that blue line in place. So the fence would have originally gone down, straight down the site. Obviously, when they've looked at the topography of the site, it's moved. Because obviously fences are put all over the place, aren't they? And when they've obviously gone back to land registry, they've realised that the original fence is in the wrong place, and Mr. 17 has retained the land back that was technically he bought off the guy here, and that's where the land's that's caused the change. So they've repositioned the red line of the site to account for that change, which has moved the boundary fence nearer, which is in red, to the property which is in red. And then the property itself has moved slightly over, because you can see we've got a little blue line and a little red line. The property's moved itself over.
So when there is a fence there, isn't there? So the fence is on the red line.
The red line.
Is that what we're saying?
That's the new
Fence
boundary
that is
of the
there
site.
now.
Yeah. So what you have to consider is the change marginal that doesn't require further full planning consent.
Councillor Myers, you wanted to speak?
No.
Very confusing.
To say it's very unusual to find this situation as well. It's usually the ordnance survey is quite correct, and it does show the outline of the site. But in this case, there has been something has happened to one of the site boundaries. Sorry, I'm not sure it's really my place, but are the neighbours in agreement as regards to the legal ownership of the land now and the position of the fence? It's probably outside.
So it's outside the remit.
Yeah,
We
okay.
can't, basically, what we're not interested as a planning committee, we're not interested in who owns what. We're interested in the fact that in front of you, there are a number of lines. You have to take the fact that we have had a signed declaration, which, if it's incorrect, is fraudulent, from the applicants that have told us that this land that they've outlined in red is now in their ownership. Because that's what they have. That's what you have. That's the test. They've signed the part of the legislation that says that's in their ownership to their best possible knowledge. Obviously, when they signed it, they'd bought a piece of land. They were told that was the ownership of that. So they have signed an application that says the land in red is their land. So can I ask, if you're going to defer it, you have to defer it on a reason. So what we can't do is the point is that as a local planning authority, we cannot get involved in land disputes. That's not our world. So if you're saying that you want to defer this item because you don't understand what the application is about and the information is inaccurate, or you think it's inaccurate, that doesn't give you the ability to make that decision, you can defer on that grounds. But what you cannot defer on is the fact that on land ownership, because we have not got jurisdiction to look at land ownership, and we can't get into, and also we've got no jurisdiction on neighbour disputes either. So again, we cannot go down into neighbour disputes. So what you're asking the deferral on, and if that is an option you're going to ask, and you'll vote on if members want to defer it, is to have a clearer understanding of the red line and the impact of the red line and the repositioning of the dwelling on the impact on 17, because it doesn't impact 134 at all, because it hasn't moved in that location, because that was already there. There, the impact will be on the site impact on 17, because we can't go down looking at 134, because that will be, you'd be looking behind the original planning permission, and you've got no rights to do that, because in principle it's got planning consent.
No. Sort of worry that the problem, you know, with the family that can't move into the house, which is a problem, but we must get it right. So, yeah, Alex?
No, just to agree with you. I mean, I can't make a decision on this because I'm so confused and baffled on it. It does need tidying up and clear and concise issues of what we're looking at, because that is confusing, and I do understand some of this, what's going on, obviously some of the changes to height and everything else and reduction in size of it, but this is just everything that's been said. I'm just absolutely baffled. So I think it'd be right to defer based on clearer information and understanding of the application.
Go for it, Mark.
Well, yeah, hopefully we can defer it, but not too long. You know, because there is planning permission on it anyway originally, but we need to resolve this problem. So, Christine, would you be able to give us the words for? As well.
So the chairman of the planning committee wants to put in front of members a petition that seeking a deferral of the planning consent, so of the application, to review the red line position of the site and also the location of the proposed dwelling.
Christine, could I just add, and also the precise relationship with number 17.
Did you want to speak on it, Emma?
Thank you, Chair. I just officers have obviously written a recommendation which tells me that there was clarity in terms of the research and evidence base of this application. So can I just ask the Exec Director of Partnerships and Growth and the officer, Mr Mullen over there, are you both clear on what this issue is? Do you have clarity? And if you have clarity, then it's just our failure as a committee then that needs to be looked at. You know, it's not an issue that can't be resolved. It's a misunderstanding on this side, which, you know, it's not. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
I mean, the report is a full report. I think what part might be difficult to understand is the vagueness of the plan in front of you. That probably hasn't helped everybody. In fact, that you've got two sets of lines, and I mean, I can see what's happening, but I don't think everyone else might be able to see that. The report does explain, probably if you look at paragraph the building size and positioning, it's set out in quite detail there what is being changed. And it does say, following the previous grant of planning permission, the applicant has advised that there were discrepancies with the approved drawings, which resulted in the need for the Section 70 application. The changes relate to the northern boundary shared with 17 Chancery Farm Chase, which means the separation distance between the proposed dwelling and the northern boundary was reduced from 2.8 to 1.5. This application proposed a minor reduction in the width of the dwelling at the ground floor, such that the distance between the proposed dwelling and the adjacent to 17 Chantry Close would be increased from 5.4 to 5.8 at the ground level in comparison to the previously approved. A distance of 7.7 will be maintained to the first floor as previously approved. The changes are considered minor, and the proposed have no greater impact on the amenities of the neighbouring occupier. So that's basically what the officer wrote in terms of the applications. So I think the case officer was quite clear in what had happened in terms of the development itself.
Thank you. That answers my question, that there is clarity on this point. Officers have clarity, and the point has just echoed back to us there. So really, deferring this because we're failing to understand a few sentences is what's being proposed now. Thank you.
I need to put this motion to defer this. I need a seconder, please. Okay, Councillor Blake. Yeah. Yeah. So, the original, what we're going to defer it for.
Yep.
Hopefully, not too long.
We have to get them to agree the difference.
Yes, of course, yeah.
But we'll bring it back to the next cycle. So
yes,
it'll be
yes.
no more than 3 weeks.
Are we all happy with that decision?
You need to put it to the vote.
Okay, all those in favour, please show. All those against?
So that means you need to
Yeah.
put the recommendation
Yes.
forward.
So now I'll have to go into the recommendation that the planning application number 24000824 VAR be approved subject to the conditions set out at section 7.1 of this report with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of the decision notice. That's the recommendations.
Okay, so now you have to.
And so all those in favour, please show. Okay, so the application.
And then you need to ask those again.
And you have to vote again. We vote again, no.
No. So you're now asking for those against the
Oh,
recommendation.
yes, of course. All those against this recommendation? Any abstentions? Okay. So what are you going to do? No vote? No, okay.
That's an abstention. You can put it on the voters.
Can you? What, no vote?
Oh, okay.
I didn't think you could do that. I think you have to...
There is
Oh,
an
you can?
there is
Okay.
an option on
All
that,
right.
Yeah, but, recommendations carried.
Yeah,
You-
okay.
You need to say that.
Yes. So that's... the application goes through, but we have 2 no votes and 1 abstention. Okay? Thank you, everybody.